subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
And noticed two figures on the coast on the island in the distance. He couldn't help but grin and said, "Push the cannon up, fire directly at Lousy, and bomb them." Yes, very quickly, several pirates from the Poker Pirates pushed out a cannon, began to adjust the muzzle, and aimed at the island ahead. "Fire!" the Big Bear King ordered. However, after loading the shells, the gunner who was holding a torch and preparing to ignite suddenly froze there. "Ah, Captain, I can't move." "Me too. What's going on?" "Damn," a pirate screamed in fear. He tried to struggle, but found that he couldn't move no matter what. "Damn, what's going on?" The Great Bear King's face changed drastically, because he was also shocked to find that he couldn't move either. "Line." His pupils shrank sharply. He noticed that there were faint black lines in the air that were inaudible, but they were not connecting their bodies, but they were connecting their shadows. The Great Bear King was shocked and angry, and even a little panicked. Is it a power user? Clang, clang, bang, bang. No, stop it. I can't control it. My body is moving on its own. Help. Woo. In the Great Bear King's terrified eyes, pirates from the Poker Pirates screamed in panic. They actually raised swords, guns, and other weapons and fought each other there. Damn it, stop. Soon, the Big Bear King himself, uncontrollably, pulled out the pistol from his waist, continuously shot at his subordinates. Bang, bang. The screams continued. In a moment, one after another, figures fell in a pool of blood. Not long, slowly moving forward, approaching the pirate ship on the uninhabited island. Stranded on the coast, William jumped lightly, jumped onto the pirate ship, standing there stupidly, unable to move. The Big Bear King, who was full of panic, anger, unwillingness, and despair, had his pupils shrank. "It's you, Black Prison Obask William. It seems that I'm quite famous." William chuckled. It's not surprising that the Big Bear King recognized him. After all, he is also a big pirate with a bounty of 200 million Baileys. At least in the first half of the Grand Line, for those little pirates who have not even been to the New World, he is already an absolute big shot. Black lines surged between his 5 fingers, retracted the shadow line. Regained freedom. The Great Bear King almost stumbled and found that he could move. Damn BD die. His face became ferocious. His fists suddenly turned red and hot, emitting amazing heat. He slammed into William fiercely. "Don't overestimate your ability." Shadow bind. William's face remained unchanged. Facing the hot red steel fist mark, he did not dodge or evade at all. Swish! It was as if time had stopped. The Great Bear King rushed over with a steel fist mark. The whole person froze there. The fist mark emitting high heat was less than 10 centimeters away from William's face. The amazing heat wave came towards him. What? The panicked Great Bear King was shocked. A black shadow extended from William's feet, connecting to his own shadow. A futile resistance. The next moment, William hooked his left index finger. A shadow line that was almost invisible to the naked eye flew out. Wrapped around armament hockey, it became dark and shiny and shone with cold light. Rip! In an instant, blood splattered. The bloody arm flew up. It was cut off ruthlessly. The Big Bear King, who was struggling but unable to move, screamed miserably. His eyes bulged, his face was distorted, and he was in great pain. He was sweating profusely. Swish! The black shadow, like a fluid. It instantly covered the Big Bear King's entire body. And William walked directly into the cabin. He soon found his target in the kitchen, carrying a large bag of various fruits. William returned to the uninhabited island with the Big Bear King, who could not move. Possessed by a puppet, in Wapple's horrified eyes, the Shadow Mage stood up. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it sank into his body. The next moment, he was shaken all over. Bang! The seastone handcuffs were untied. The shadow lines that bound him were also removed by William. Try it. William threw the big bag of fruit directly over. At the same time, on his right hand, a shadow tentacle emerged. It turned into an extremely sharp spear tip. It instantly pierced the heart of the Big Bear King and killed him. Ka! Wapol suddenly opened his mouth wide. He swallowed the whole bag of fruit alive. The next moment, he actually pounced directly on the Big Bear King, who was killed by William. The exaggerated and eerie big mouth kept opening. In 3 or 5 times, the Big Bear King was swallowed alive. Not long after, bang, a bloody corpse was spit out. At the same time, there was a fruit with strange patterns. Did it succeed? William's eyes condensed. He couldn't help but smile. Chapter 42, Transparent Fruit and Thunder Fruit Crash. Early morning. The wind is gentle and the sun is shining, and the waves are blooming. The dark birds of prey spread their wings and glide there, circling down. William took Wapol and followed the guidance of the life card back to the ship of terror. Lord William, who is this guy? Saw a tied-up Wapol. Wappa, Perona, Brooke, Van Oka, and others are full of surprises. Hiss, hiss, hiss. We all saw the news in the newspaper, saying that the king of the Drum Kingdom was kidnapped. Wapol looks a little familiar. Hadbagu raised the newspaper in his hand and said in surprise, "Did you do it, Lord William?" On the headlines of a newspaper, it was the news that Drum King Wapol had been kidnapped. Well, he is a person with the ability of paramecia, munch fruit. William nodded, chuckled, and said, "Not only can you synthesize the things you swallow, you can also fuse them with yourself. You can even directly synthesize special rare metals from a variety of metal minerals you swallowed. This ability is of immeasurable value. TSK Tisk. I see." Here William's introduction. Perona, Van Oka, Hadbagu, and others could not help but marvel. No wonder William made a special trip to the Drum Kingdom. Kidnapped the other party. However, the truly amazing ability of munch fruit is more than that. The corners of his mouth turned up. William chuckled. "Later, I will open your eyes." Hearing this, everyone was surprised. With curiosity, he followed William towards the castle. "Go get a bag of fruit. I want all kinds of fruits." Yes. Not long after, underground of the castle, in a dark prison, bang, looking at Absalom spit out by Wapol and the strange devil fruit. Wappa, Perona, Van Oka, Brooke, Hadbagu, and others were all stunned. Everyone was stunned. Some couldn't believe their eyes. "Gulu," Perona swallowed. "Is this really? That Absalom guy's ability, paramecia, transparent fruit, has been recovered?" Hadbabaku's eyes were bulging. It was almost unbelievable, and his voice was trembling. "Incredible," Van Oka marveled. Immediately, his eyes lit up, full of excitement. He could imagine how useful this ability would be. Even if William wanted to, he could hunt down ability users and form a powerful army of ability users. Didn't it say that after the person with abilities dies, the devil fruit will reappear randomly? Wappa gasped. Join the Hell Pirates these days. Under the introduction of Brooke, Hadbagu, and others, he continued to absorb the knowledge and information of King Hai. Now, he certainly doesn't know anything about devil fruit. Naturally, he can deprive others of their devil fruit abilities. What an exaggeration. Originally, I just made a bold guess and didn't hold out much hope. William took over the ability of the transparent fruit and tossed it there. I didn't expect it to be successful. It was indeed an unexpected surprise. "This is yours, Oka." With that said, he threw the transparent fruit directly to Fan Oka. At first, he really didn't have high hopes for munch fruit's ability to rob others. "I just want to have the munch fruit's ability user in my hand. Let him act as a mining tool man. Just working for yourself. This catch that fruit." Van Oka was surprised and delighted. "I think there is no one more suitable for it than you, a sniper," William said with a chuckle. The ability of the transparent fruit can make the user and even the targets they come into contact with become transparent and invisible. Such Bug's invisibility ability is coupled with Van Oka's excellent marksmanship. Couldn't be a better fit. "Thank you very much." "Then you're welcome." Van Oka didn't hesitate. Such an ability is simply a dream for a sniper like him. I couldn't wait and took a bite. Ugh, his face turned purple and he almost retched. Although I was mentally prepared, it tastes really bad. He knew it didn't taste good, but he didn't expect it to be so exaggerated. I'm afraid I will never forget this taste in this life. Oh ho ho ho, the taste of devil fruit is something you will never forget, Brooke said with a strange smile. Sir William, are you going to take back Enel's ability? Habagu asked excitedly. Hugabagu is right. That guy with his nostrils turned upward is too unruly, Perona said loudly. Even if he is really willing to bow his head, I'm afraid he is pretending to join us with ulterior motives. Possible betrayal. Well, I originally kept him because I didn't want to waste a top-notch Logia fruit. William did not hesitate and nodded directly. There is really no need to keep him now. Keep Enel first. It's not because of the other person's talent at all. I just don't want to miss Logia Thunder Fruit's ability in vain. Now that there is a way to recover the fruit's ability, and the arrogant guy has been unable to be subdued, he doesn't have the patience to grind it out any longer. Just do it. Less than 10 minutes, accompanied by a scream. There was a bloody corpse in the underground prison. In William's hand, there was a strange fruit that was golden in color and had lightning-shaped barbs. TSK, is this Logia Thunder Fruit? Brooke, Perona, Hobagu, and others were all full of curiosity. They had heard William mention how exaggerated this fruit was. It may be controversial to say that Logia is the strongest, but it is definitely one of the top abilities in the sea. If nothing else, just look at Naval Headquarters and you will know. The 3 admirals, who represent the highest combat power of Naval Headquarters, are all top Logia ability users. However, since most of them are already capable people, I don't really have any ideas. Wappa, yours. Playing with this thunder fruit. William thought for a moment and threw it directly to Wappa. No matter how powerful the ability is, there must be people who can match it and bring out its true power. At first, he was still thinking about whether to give the other party the rat fruit, phantom bee species, and sickle weasel form ability that he snatched from the world government. But now that there are better options, the ability of that phantom bee species, the Kamita form. Instead, you can keep it and use it to train other strong people. After all, you want to challenge a behemoth like world government, which has profound foundations and many powerful people. Relying on him alone is not enough. Lord William, is this too expensive? Wappa was stunned. Subconsciously, catch the throne fruit. While a little excited, he looked at William hesitantly. Unexpectedly, the other party would give such a powerful ability directly to him. I'm not stingy about cultivating my own people. William patted him on the shoulder and said bluntly, these days, I think everyone has witnessed your performance. You passed my test and are worthy of this fruit. Unlike the unruly Enel, under William's popular science these days, Wappa, who is still somewhat arrogant in his heart, has understood how vast and wonderful the world is. No longer sit in a well and look at the sky, realizing your own weakness. In order not to hold back, but also to protect the Sandia clan. It can be said that he worked hard to practice harder and was not willing to miss any training time. William naturally noticed this. Compared to Enel, the arrogant guy who sits in a well and looks at the sky, Wappa definitely deserves this thunder fruit. Oh ho ho ho, Sir William is right. I am quite convinced, Brooke said with a smile, because he had already seen that William valued Wappa far more than anyone else. It could be said that he was trained as his right-hand man in the future. The requirements for Wappa are also more demanding and severe on weekdays. If it were Brooke himself, he thought he wouldn't be able to hold on. There are still differences between people. I really can't be jealous. Not bad. At least it's more pleasing to the eye than that guy Enel. Hiss, hiss, hiss. It looks like our Hell Pirates will have one more Logia strongman. This is also destiny. Even Perona, Habagu, Van Oka, and others have nothing to say. Although he is already an Esper, he is still envious of top abilities like Logia, Thunderfruit. However, others had no objections to William's decision. For 10 days and a half, I often trained with each other. They finally understood why this lord was so fond of Vappa, a warrior of Sandia. Even the rather arrogant Fan Oka, Perona, and others couldn't help but feel a little ashamed of themselves. Under William's guidance, the other party practiced without risking his life, and the amount of training was simply exaggerated. Every day in the middle of the night, or at 4 in the morning, I get up to train on my own, and my efforts are at least 10 or 20 times greater than theirs. No matter how hard or tiring he was during the training, he never complained, and he never even cried out that he was tired. He always completed the training tasks assigned by William without saying a word, and it was still overfulfilled, even tired enough to lie down directly or even fall asleep directly. It makes people convinced. Lord William, I will not let you down. Hold on tight to Thunderfruit. Wappa looked at William with gratitude. His eyes were full of determination, and he was determined to work harder. Keep up with the opponent's footsteps as soon as possible, and you will definitely not let this adult down. One day, it will become the strongest spear and shield in his hand. Chapter 43. A small test of skills. William versus Hell Pirates. A week passed in a hurry. The disappearance of Wapple, the king of the Drum Kingdom, caused a lot of sensation. But this has nothing to do with William, and no one thinks of his 7 warlords of the sea, who hides behind the scenes. The terrifying ship continued to sail on the sea, heading towards the prehistoric island. During this period, I also encountered many pirates who had no eyesight, especially attracted by the huge and eye-catching golden clock. However, these pirates paid the price for their greed. He became a prisoner, had his shadow taken away, and was imprisoned in a dark dungeon. Then, Lord William, we are going to be offended. On this day, the sky was clear and the wind was gentle. In the spacious training ground of the terror ship, Wappa stared at William in front of him, his eyes full of fighting intent. Not just him, but Brook, Van Oka, Perona, Habagu, and others. It doesn't matter. Just let it go boldly, William laughed. Let me see your progress these days. Not to mention Perona and the others. Even those zombie generals could not threaten him. This is the self-confidence of the strong. I know, wife. See this. Wappa's no nonsense. His right wrist turned into a strong electric light and blasted directly towards William. In the past few days, William had already introduced to him one by one a series of moves and principles developed by Enel through the Thunderfruit ability. It allowed him to gain a lot from the development of his own abilities. A lot of detours have been avoided, and time has been greatly saved. Just follow William's directions and practice a little. Just be able to use those moves developed by Enel. I have a good grasp of it. Even surpass the other party. The electric light shines. The astonishing thunder light came with a blast. But William refused to dodge and kicked out violently with his right foot, which was like lightning. Tempest kick. Call out. A fierce light green slash shot through the air. He collided fiercely with the lightning that struck suddenly. Boom, boom. There was a loud roar. The lightning was dazzling and the smoke was billowing. But at the same time, brush. Fan Oka moved. The whole person disappeared from William's sight at a speed visible to the naked eye. Almost at the same time, gunfire echoed in an instant. Boom, boom, boom. The air seemed to have invisible ripples, and bullets invisible to the naked eye were fired towards William. The target hits home. Show no mercy. Paper arts with a powerful observation hockey. William's entire figure was like an extremely thin piece of paper, easily dodging the 3 bullets that came from the attack. They continued unabated, leaving 3 shocking bullet holes on the wall not far away. It makes people burst into cold sweat. Shave at this time. Perona stepped hard. At an astonishing speed, he flew in front of William. His right palm suddenly swiped. Negative ghost. Swipe, swipe. Several negative ghosts flew out and rushed directly towards William. But there will be no time to contact William in the future. Perona felt a sharp pain coming over her. Bang! A punch hit her abdomen. The delicate face was distorted, and the gall was about to be vomited out. With a scream, it flew out like a cannonball. Perona, this level is far from enough. William chuckled. Perona has made great progress these days despite his high-pressure training, but it's obviously still far from it. Whoosh, whoosh. William's body shook as if he felt something. Once again, a few bullets that were invisible to the naked eye flashed past, as well as those negative ghosts that were relentless and kept rushing towards me. Shave. Yiming's song straight through at this time. A flower in front of my eyes. Brook rushed forward at an alarming speed. Moreover, the staff sword, which had already been unsheathed, stabbed out in an instant. Wah! The sharp impact tore through the atmosphere and penetrated. But William easily dodged it. Moonwalk. Tempest kick chaos. The next moment, William pressed his feet. The whole person rushed up and stayed in midair through the atmosphere. Locked down Brook below. His right foot suddenly kicked out. Whoosh! One after another, shocking light green slashes. Like a violent storm, the bombardment struck Brook. Not only him, but also Dr. Hogbugu, who had just rushed up, could not help but change their color in horror and dodge in embarrassment. Boom, boom. Loud noises continued. Smoke and dust billowed. The earth was blasted into a mess. Brook is a little better. After William's guidance and training, both his swordsmanship and overall quality have been greatly improved, but he is just a little embarrassed. Moreover, he was specially manipulated by William to strengthen Wapple with the power of Munch Munch fruit. His bones are comparable to morphological memory alloys, and ordinary swords and guns cannot hurt him at all. And Hogbugu, who is slightly less powerful, was in ragged clothes and grinning. There were many wounds on the body. Woo! There was a flash of electricity. Wappa's body is like electricity. He appeared behind William in an instant. However, there is no time to take action yet. William seemed to predict the future. His body was like lightning, and his reactions were extremely quick. Finger pistol. The slender right index finger wrapped around armament hockey, tearing the atmosphere apart like lightning, and the whole shot out. At the same time, William's eyes narrowed and his head suddenly turned to one side. Once again, he dodged several rounds of invisible bullets that suddenly struck him. Lightning flashed. Wappa's hair stood on end. His whole body turned into lightning, and he retreated violently, barely escaping the brutal attack. At the same time, not to be outdone, they launched a fierce offensive. Lightning kick. The lightning is dazzling. Eye-catching kick. With the speed of lightning and carrying astonishing power, it came through the air. It's so dazzling that you can't react at all. Boom! With the powerful observation hockey prediction. Not to be outdone, William wrapped his arms around Hockey's right foot and charged forward. Instead of being strong and strong. What? The exaggerated power made Wappa change his color in shock. In an instant, it turned into a dazzling electric light. Shoot out. Boom! The strong electric light disappeared in a flash. The ground in the distance collapsed, and smoke filled the air. With the help of electronic technology, the exaggerated impact was removed, and Wappa's whole person flashed out. Brush! The next moment, William suddenly dodged. While dodging several invisible bullets, the innate observation hockey directly locked onto Van Oka's aura. Although the ability of the transparent fruit is indeed very powerful, even an ordinary strong person with observation hockey cannot easily lock on Van Oka, who deliberately distanced himself and kept moving quickly. But William is an awakened person who is born with observation. Observation hockey can easily cover an island, and even any changes in the aura on it cannot escape his induction, completely restraining Van Oka's invisibility ability. Fly finger pistol. With a flick of his fingers, several air blades shot out of the air. He shot towards the direction where Van Oka was invisible. Negative ghost. A large number of negative ghosts came over one after another. Perona controlled them from a distance and pursued William relentlessly. Revolutionary dance, a salt attack. At the same time, a cold light flashed. Brook stepped hard, drew his sword, and swung at extremely fast speed. Shaving flash, Brook's vision blurred, and an afterimage passed in front of him. William was incredibly fast, and not only dodged those annoying negative ghosts, and he easily dodged his slashing attack. Tempest kick chaos. In an instant, William, who had distanced himself, launched a fierce counterattack. His legs kept tearing apart the air and kicked out violently. Whoosh! One slash after another came out in succession. Brook and Perona were shocked. Boom, boom. At this time, lightning flashed. The disgraced Wappa rushed out from the ruins. The whole body was flashing with astonishing electric light, which made people feel frightened. What a terrifying power. The right foot that had fought with William before was trembling unnaturally. Before William could rush up to him, he already launched an attack again without hesitation. 60 million volts Brontosaurus. Roar, the electric light flickers. A giant Brontosaurus comes to life. Baring his teeth and claws, he roared towards William. It blasted over. Ha ha! Tempest kick, Landon. Squint your eyes. William's expression remained unchanged. With one step of his foot, he advanced instead of retreating and rushed out. His right foot instantly tore through the atmosphere and kicked out a dazzling slash. Wah! The huge and dazzling slash was so sharp that it shot through the air in an instant. He collided hard with the thunder dragon that suddenly attacked. Boom, boom. Bah, bah. Midair, William is as fast as lightning, stepping on the atmosphere, running wildly. 100 million volts. Wappa's eyes flashed, and he was about to attack with all his strength. Death Razor. However, in an instant, an extremely sharp trajectory streaked through the air. Wappa's pupils shrank sharply, and his hair stood on end. But it was too late to dodge. Gee, I felt a blur in front of my eyes, and before I had time to react, the head was already separated, with wisps of electric light. Wappa was dripping with cold sweat and couldn't help but gasp. If William had used hockey just now, his body was really separated and his head fell to the ground. Chapter 44. The Shadow of Split, Ancient Giant's Brush, a Spacious Training Ground. William did not stop his offensive. In an instant, a sharp trajectory streaked through the air and disappeared in a flash. Brook, who had just been blasted away and was about to rush forward, suddenly felt his hair stand on end. What? He was blocking with his sword. Sparks sputter. The sound of gold and iron clashing was a bit harsh. But Brook, who could barely block the fatal blow, had no time to breathe a sigh of relief. Brush. A sharp kick swept across. Even though his bones had been strengthened with morphological memory alloy, there was still a burning pain that made him gasp. The next moment, the whole person was flying out like a cannonball. Death Razor, midair, comes with a sharp trajectory. Black afterimages kept passing by the training ground. The speed William showed was as fast as a ghost. After more than 3 months of continuous training and hard work, his strength has obviously improved to a higher level. On the basis of the original 6 moves, it was once again innovated and combined with shaving and moonwalk to create an extended technique, Death Razor, which is jaw-droppingly fast. Everywhere you go, all obstacles were ruthlessly torn apart and cut open. It is as fast as a ghost and out of reach, causing the target to be torn apart before he can react. Bang, bang. In the blink of an eye, whether it's Dr. Hagba-gu, Van Oka hiding in the dark, or Perona himself, one after another, they were hit hard. Each one screamed, flying out. There was a flash of lightning. Wappa's whole body recovered as before and scathed, but he raised his hand and resigned helplessly. As expected of Lord William, we lost, Lord William. Damn it, I lost so miserably. Get up in embarrassment. Perona, who was bruised and swollen, was full of unwillingness. Oh ho ho ho, Master William is really getting more and more powerful. Looking at the somewhat embarrassed Brook, I felt inexplicable. Because the skeleton was modified by Munch fruit with morphological memory alloy, it can be said to be indestructible and invulnerable, so there is no serious problem at all. It hurts me to death. The embarrassed Hogbaga bared his teeth and said, no match for you at all. My ability has been completely seen through by Sir William. There was a shocking bloody hole on his shoulder. Fan Oka, who was slightly injured after being hit by William's flying finger pistol, was full of helplessness while carrying his beloved gun Qianlu. His transparent fruit ability was completely seen through by William. There is no threat at all in front of the other party. They're making continuous progress these days. But this adult also did not stand still and made faster progress. Without even using his abilities, he could easily crush them all with his physical skills alone, even in the case of direct and large-scale water release. If I can be threatened by you so easily, wouldn't I be a failure as a boss? William chuckled. After speaking, he clapped his hands. Okay, that's it for today. Come with me to the ice house, and let me open your eyes. After so long delay, the legendary demon Oz really should be resurrected. William directly announced the big news. Get ready to resurrect the most powerful zombie, Magic Oz. Majin Oz. Lord William, are you finally ready to resurrect it? Hiss, 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 the strongest zombie? That's really awesome. Hearing this, Perona, Van Oka, Habagu, and others all couldn't help but shine with expectation. Sir William, have you found a suitable shadow? Brooke was a little confused. Didn't this adult say that ordinary shadows are not worthy of this strongest zombie? So, do you still have to wait? No, no need. There is a better choice. William's mouth curled up. He walked straight toward the castle. Hearing William say this, Perona and others were confused. But seeing that William had no intention of saying more, they could only follow quickly. Clang! Not long after, in a huge ice storage, the heavy door opened. The group followed William here with confusion and expectation. All around, coffins were displayed in order. But the most eye-catching thing was, a huge body with a red body just sat there. After Dr. Hogaba's unremitting and perfect restoration, the body of the demon Oz was completely lifelike, without any decay. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Is it finally going to be resurrected? Although it was unclear what William was going to do next, Dr. Hogaba was still full of excitement. Every time I see it, I feel so shocked. Looking up at the extremely tall and visually impactful behemoth in front of him, Wappa was full of emotion. I remember that a few days ago, when he first saw the body of the demon Oz, he was shocked. Unexpectedly, there are such huge humanoid creatures in the world. It's incredible. I'm really looking forward to it. Perona, Brooke, Van Oka, and others couldn't help but look at it with burning eyes. Shadow split. William walked forward slowly, his eyes suddenly stern. Under the gaze of everyone, the shadow under his feet suddenly struggled and trembled. Swish! The next moment, it split apart at a speed visible to the naked eye. Weirdly turned into two human-shaped shadows. Each one has hands and feet, exactly the same. Swish! Swish! The next moment, two identical shadow mages directly stood up. What is this? Staring at this scene blankly. Wappa, Brooke, Van Oka, and others all couldn't help but shrink their eyes. The second shadow clone, Perona, was full of surprise. They all saw how powerful William's Shadow Master was. If he could control two Shadow Masters to fight, you can imagine how amazing it would be. However, what does this have to do with creating the strongest zombie? Could it be, Lord William, you succeeded? Thinking of something, Hogubagu was full of shock and cried out. He naturally knew that compared to plundering the shadows of those strong men, creating a more powerful zombie. In fact, this Lord William has always wanted to use his own shadow to create the strongest zombie. He has been trying and trying, but he has not succeeded. But I didn't expect that the other party did it so quickly. Hiss, 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 worthy of Lord William. For a moment, Hogubagu was full of excitement. How powerful is the zombie created with William's own shadow? He has already seen it a long time ago. Well, I can barely split my shadow. William nodded, as Van Oka and others watched intently. He pressed his right hand directly on the forehead of the new Shadow Mage and pressed it against the huge body of Demon Oz. In my name, I grant you a new life, an independent personality, and make you my clone. A strange red light flashed in his eyes, and William directly activated the power of the Shadow Fruit and made a contract there. You will offer all your loyalty, serve until death, and never betray. The next moment, the Shadow Mage, who did not move at all, sank into the body of Demon Oz. As my most loyal servant, revive with the strongest attitude. Zombie King, Demon Oz. Chapter 45, King of Zombies, Demon Oz. Dong, dong, dong. The roar like a drum kept echoing. In the huge ice house, the stiff and huge body of Demon Oz gradually began to revive, and his powerful heart was beating there. The exaggerated heartbeat makes people feel a little frightened. Gulu, this depressing breath. Is he finally going to be resurrected? The legendary demon. I heard that it often moved its favorite islands or countries away during its lifetime, and was called the Lucky Country Oz. The eyes of Brook, Perona, Habagu, and others were blazing, full of unspeakable expectations. What kind of power does the legendary Yunghua Oz have? Brush! The huge fingers began to move. Demon Oz suddenly opened his eyes. Eyeballs covered with horrifying bloodshot eyes stared at Wappa, Perona, Brook, and others in front of them. The palpitating aura made them all feel numb. From today on, you are the zombie king who rules all zombies, Demon Oz. William folded his arms and spoke calmly. I am the zombie king, Majin Oz. A blank stare gradually became clearer, looking at William's tiny figure in front of him. The exaggerated body of Demon Oz suddenly moved. Bang, bang. The huge ice house roared because of its actions. It made me break into a cold sweat. We have to worry about whether this castle is strong enough. Master. Oz's voice was like a bell, and with his ridiculously huge body, he knelt on one knee. He lowered his huge head towards William, his master. Full of piety. From now on, call me Sir William. William said directly. Unlike other zombies, Oz is the strongest zombie created from his own split shadow. It is the most advanced and perfect zombie, equivalent to his own clone, with an independent personality. Not only has he perfectly inherited his fighting instinct, but he also has excellent wisdom and learning ability and can continue to grow. Although the strength of this body has basically locked its upper limit, there is still a lot of room for improvement in general, especially in terms of hockey and combat skills. In particular, it doesn't have as many weaknesses as other zombies. Yes, Lord William. Bang, bang. Not long. The earth rumbled and trembled. A huge figure with a red body, bigger than Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, and unbelievably exaggerated. It's like blocking out the sky and the sun, which is daunting. Take your time and walk out of the huge castle. That is Gulu. Isn't that the legendary demon, Oz the Luck Country? Has it been resurrected by Lord William? Countless zombie soldiers, including Wang Luan, John, Silver Axe, and other zombie generals, were shocked. Looking at the demon Oz, who was truly resurrected by William and walked out of the cold storage of the terrifying ship as the strongest zombie king. The strong visual impact shocked them beyond words. Some sweat broke out. Boom, that afternoon. The terrifying ship docked at an uninhabited island. The island trembled and smoke billowed. The huge body of the demon Oz left the terrifying ship and set foot on the uninhabited island. It caused countless birds and beasts to panic, running around. Let me see your power, Oz. William brought Wappa, Brook, Perona, Van Oka, and others to the coast of the terror ship, but he had no intention of landing on the island. The Shadow Mage stood up directly and spread out a pair of shadow wings. Suddenly, they flew over to an uninhabited island. Bring it on. Good. Mage Oz is unattainable. Looking down at the tiny Shadow Mage, his eyes became sharp. The next moment, shave. It stamped its feet. It disappeared in an instant, showing extremely terrifying speed. Suddenly appeared in the sky above the Shadow Mage. The exaggerated right leg is like a huge sword and axe. No, it should be said to be like a giant war hammer, violently rubbing against the atmosphere. Blow down brazenly. Boom! The ground shook and the loud noise shook the sky. Debris flew and smoke billowed. The entire island seemed to be shaking. The ground with a radius of 300 to 400 meters collapsed directly, showing huge cracks like spiderwebs. Woo-hoo-hoo! Crash! The fierce wind pressure swept away countless sand and stones, rolling away. One after another, the towering trees were crushed and swaying, wailing endlessly. The sea surface even set off huge waves. Makes you sweat. This is Sixth style? So fast. I can't see clearly at all. Gulu, what a power this is. How can such a huge body possess such exaggerated speed? This horrific scene. Perona, Brook, Habagu, and others could not help but widen their eyes and were all stunned. I just feel my scalp is numb. If it were them instead, I'm afraid I'll be turned into a pulp. Poo lingling. A large number of pitch-black bats kept flying. There they gathered together into a human-shaped black shadow. Shadow Giant. The Shadow Mage suddenly swelled up. It turned into a shadow giant about 20 meters tall, although its size was not as big as that of Demon Oz, but no less than the two leaders of the giant soldier pirates, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. The flexible and retractable Greedy Snake. The exaggeratedly large black shadow fist print, which was as big as a giant clan, was constantly tearing apart the atmosphere. Moreover, directly blessing armament hockey, it becomes dark and shiny. Crazy blast towards the huge Demon Oz. Boom, boom. Demon Oz can't dodge. He was hit continuously, and his body kept falling backwards. The ground cracked under his feet. Smoke and dust billowed. Hey, it doesn't hurt or itch. It has horns on its head and a hideous face. It looks a little awkward, but it's not serious at all. The Shadow Giant's fist seal is no less than that of a real giant warrior, and can be said to be extremely huge. Although it is not as weak as a baby's fist, it cannot pose much of a threat at all. In particular, it is a zombie itself, and cannot feel pain at all. Look at my flexible snake. Looking at the Shadow Mage, who was hundreds of meters away, Oz bared his teeth and smiled. Immediately afterwards, in the shocked eyes of Wappa, Perona, Van Oka, and Hogbagu, it brazenly raised its exaggerated fist and waved it wildly. Moreover, the fist turned as black as ink. Straight around armament hockey. Between the electric light and flint. The atmosphere is constantly being rubbed. The ridiculously large fist prints were densely packed and dazzling. What's even more exaggerated is that Oz's arms, which were already 30 or 40 meters long, actually stretched out again, continuously bombarded the Shadow Giant. Boom, boom. There is no suspense. A Shadow Giant about 20 meters tall. It was directly crushed by the exaggerated power and blasted to pieces. It turned into countless black mud and splashed out. Chapter 46 Little Garden. Fighting giants hiss too strong. What a power! Hiss, 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 this is the Zombie King. On the Ship of Terror, witnessing the battle between the Shadow Giant and the Demon Oz. Wappa, Brook, Van Oka, Habagu, and others were all shocked. Perona couldn't help but gasped and looked at William in disbelief. Sir William, can Oz not only use hockey, but also the ability of the Shadow Fruit? After I gave it an independent personality and completely integrated into the body of Majin Oz and became a zombie, it has certain restrictions. It cannot use other Shadow Fruit abilities and can only change its own shadow. Gazing at the overwhelming, terrifying power displayed on the uninhabited island and easily suppressing the Shadow Mage's Demon Oz, William said nonchalantly. In other words, it can only assist in the battle through the Shadow Revolution. The current Demon Oz is equivalent to a telescopic fruit user. Of course, this is just to test the fighting power of Oz the Demon. After all, with William as an ability user and full of physical strength, the Shadow Mage as a clone has the same combat power as the original body. There is no real action. After all, the ability of the Shadow Fruit is not just for show. Just in time, we will soon be able to fully verify Oz's true fighting power. William couldn't help but chuckle as he thought of his next destination. His eyes were full of expectation. He used the split shadow to create the strongest zombie. Will he be weaker than the two former leaders of the world-famous giant pirates? Listen, from today on, Oz is your king. All zombie soldiers and zombie generals must obey his orders. William's irresistible voice echoed in the ears of every zombie. Yes, Lord William. Osama. Oh, dash, one zombie soldier shouted. Even those arrogant zombie generals lower their heads. Without him, the gap is too big. There is no thought of challenging at all. Lord William. The uninhabited island has arrived. 2 days later, on the vast and endless sea, the Ship of Terror moved forward slowly there. An island with dense vegetation is visible in the distance. Great, is it finally here? Perona, who was sweating profusely from training, jumped up excitedly. I couldn't wait to look at the islands in the distance. Hiss, 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 Lord William, are there really giants on this island? Hogbaga's eyes were shining with expectation. They all already knew the reason why William came to the uninhabited island. Here, there are two giant warriors. It is said that he is also the former leader of the giant soldier pirates. 180 years ago, a bounty of 100 million belly was placed on his head by the world government. The strength is unbelievable. It is an excellent material for zombies. Of course, my information will not be wrong, William said calmly. Yo ho ho ho, apart from Oz, the even bigger ancient giant, I have never seen a real giant. Brooks said. He was born in a certain kingdom in West Blue, although there are also giant countries in that sea area. But those giants were relatively exclusive and rarely interacted with humans. He had never seen the giants before. But obviously, relatively speaking, the appearance of the giants is closer to humans. Mage in Oz is more like a giant monster in human form. See, it's really big and intimidating. Van Oka jumped to a high place and looked at the islands in the distance. With the high-power sniper scope of his right eye, he saw the giant on the island, and he was filled with emotion. Since he is the leader of the giant pirates, he must be very strong, right? Wappa, who was holding exaggerated dumbbells and squatting up and down, sweating profusely, subconsciously looked over. Boom, boom. At this time, on the island, there were sudden roars. Volcanoes erupted, billowing smoke. It was as if a battle horn had been sounded. Bang, bang. Not long after, in the shocked and incomprehensible eyes of Perona, Brook, Haba, Gu, and others, accompanied by huge shouts, two huge giants ran out from both ends of the island. Holding exaggerated weapons and shields, he is full of fighting spirit. Fighting together. Clang, clang. Boom, boom. On an uninhabited island. Swords and axes collided, and sparks flew out. There were constant loud noises, and the whole island was shaking. Two huge figures wearing helmets and armor were fighting there. Woo, wow. In the fierce confrontation of the fierce confrontation, the amazing wind pressure has been pushed over countless big trees, and the sea is even more turbulent. The strength displayed by the two former leaders of the giant soldier pirates is truly shocking. Countless birds flew away in panic, and a large number of prehistoric creatures that should have disappeared over the years were running around there. Even from an extremely long distance, you can feel the exaggerated collision of forces. It's heart-stopping. Scalp numbness. A fight started? How was this going? On the sea, near an uninhabited island. The slowly approaching ship of terror is getting closer and closer. Looking at the exaggerated size of the island, the two giants suddenly started a desperate duel and kept fighting. Perona, Brook, Habagu, and others were all confused. Some were stunned. No need to be surprised. William was not surprised. Looking at the two giants who were fighting on the uninhabited island, he said lightly, for some reasons, they have been fighting here for almost 100 years. Only the real winner can return with glory. Elbaf, become the sole leader of the giant pirates. But the two have similar strength. Even if they fight countless times, it's still hard to tell the winner. This is also the reason why the giant pirates, which was at its peak back then, suddenly disbanded. The giants are not like humans. Most of them are one-dimensional guys with very stubborn personalities. It seems ridiculous to us, but they are willing to sacrifice everything, risk their glory, risk their lives, and follow through to the end. Leave aside everything else. These giants have the determination and will to carry out their beliefs to the end. Still quite admirable. Is this the giant race? It's really incredible. Wappa was amazed as he stared at the battle between the two giants. The strength displayed by the two giants was truly astonishing. Put aside the recently acquired Logia Thunderfruit ability. If he went up, he would probably be smashed into pieces by a giant with an exaggerated size and immense strength. He would not be qualified to challenge head-on. Blue Ogre Dory, Red Ogre Broggy. They are right, the former leaders of the giant soldier pirates. Van Oka flipped through the collected bounty lists. Comparing the appearance of the two giants, the identities of the two former leaders of the giant soldier pirates were confirmed. Then Lord William, it's better to wait until they both lose, and then... Hagaba said with a weird smile. Although the strategy you mentioned is feasible and the best choice, I am not prepared to do that. William stared closely at the fighting blue ogre and red ogre. There was a fiery fighting spirit in his eyes, and he was unprecedentedly proud. He knew very well how powerful the two leaders of the giant soldier pirates were. Once they really worked together and joined forces to fight against the enemy, I am afraid that the pirate emperors in New World who are as strong as monsters may not be able to easily defeat them in a short time. 1 + 1 can be said to be far greater than 2. However, even though it was clear that the two of them were very strong, but William was still determined to use Blue Ogre and Red Ogre as his whetstone. Although there are conspiracies and tricks, he does not reject them. But it doesn't have to be used at all times. If every time you encounter a decent and strong enemy, I just want to play some conspiracy and use any means. Sooner or later, he was immersed in it, and unconsciously, he lost his indomitable spirit. And if you want to become a truly strong person, just hiding and practicing behind closed doors is not enough. Only by constantly fighting and killing those strong people, and tempering between life and death, can people grow the fastest. Of course, he wants to challenge the strong, not seek death. In a one-on-one challenge, William is still very confident. If you have to go up one-on-one, you're going to die directly. But there is the trump card of Mage and Oz. He is very confident. Chapter 47, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, the arrogant Oz Kong. Prehistoric Island Center. On a green plain, the two giants' swords collided and gave them a hard blow. Ooh. The powerful wind kept raging, making it difficult to open one's eyes. The two of them seemed to feel something and separated. They all looked at the sea in the distance, because they all felt the unusual aura. Gagagaga, watching the huge island ship coming slowly on the sea. The huge blue ogre Dory, who had a long beard and was holding a long sword and a buckler, bared his teeth and smiled. It looks like we have a guest. Kabababa. Then the duel between us will come to an end today. Red Ogre Broggy on the opposite side couldn't help grinning. He was huge, somewhat bloated, with exaggerated nostrils and a big yellow beard. Looking at the huge island ship, I was a little surprised. It's so huge. Is it a ship transformed from an island? This is the first time I've seen it. Wait, is that Ancient Giant Clan? Suddenly, Blue Ogre Dory's pupils shrank sharply. I noticed the figure on the terrifying ship that was far more exaggerated than the giants. TSK, there really is a big guy here, carrying a giant axe. Red Ogre Broggy bared his teeth and laughed. Hey, Broggy, does that guy look familiar to you? Something came to mind. Blue Ogre Dory was full of surprise, turned his head and said to Red Ogre Broggy, why does it feel like he looks a bit like a guy we saw before? Kabababa, I also remembered it, Dory. Red Ogre Broggy laughed and said, that guy is probably also a descendant of the devil, right? Gagagagaga, the big villain who liked to luck the country 500 years ago. Lord William, is he finally going to do something big? At the same time, the ship of terror is getting closer and closer, ready to dock. The ground rumbled, and Demon Oz walked over with heavy steps. That huge figure was intimidating. Gulu, Lord Oz, each zombie soldier, and even the zombie generals all moved out of the way. It seems that those two guys have discovered us and stopped fighting. Looking at the two giant figures on the prehistoric island looking over here, that face that was so fierce that it could make a baby stop crying was full of excitement. Do you want to go directly? Lord William. It bared its teeth there, with high fighting spirit and eagerness to try. As William split shadow, he created a zombie clone. It obviously inherited William's warlike character and was fearless in the face of any enemy. But I don't know if he was affected by the body of Demon Oz, but he was actually much more arrogant than William himself. On weekdays, no one except William, the master, would obey. Even Brooke, Van Oka, Habagu, and others were not taken seriously by him. Then come over and say hello to me. William laughed. The blood in his body has gradually begun to boil. Only by constantly fighting against the strong can one make progress faster. The whole person jumped suddenly, spreading the shadow wings behind him, and soared into the sky. It fell directly on the head of Mage and Oz. Yes, there is nothing more interesting than fighting. Oz's terrifying eyes were full of excitement. It beat its chest, made a sound like a drum, and blew up a fierce hurricane. Bang! He couldn't wait and pressed his feet. Under the watchful eyes of Perona, Van Oka, Habagu, and others, the huge figure jumped up high. All of a sudden, it spanned a distance of more than several hundred meters. Arriving on the coast of prehistoric island. Boom, there was a loud bang. The earth roared. The whole island seemed to tremble violently. The ground collapsed, rocks flew, and smoke billowed. The sea surface even set off huge waves. Boiling. Are you here? It's really big enough. Kabababa! There's a human on its head. The ground shook as Demon Oz continues to approach. Noticing the impossibly young figure on top of the behemoth in front of them, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre were both a little surprised. Gaga. I haven't looked up to others like this for a long time. Blue Ogre Dory raised his head, looking at the exaggeratedly large and astonishingly powerful Demon Oz and the negligible tiny figure above him. Especially that strong human being, although he was too young. The aura he exuded was one that could not be underestimated. I'm very sorry for disturbing you by coming uninvited, William said with a smile on top of the head of Demon Oz. He looked directly at the two huge figures in front of him, his eyes full of awe-inspiring fighting spirit, and said bluntly, "Nothing else. I just feel happy to see the hunter. When I see a strong person, I can't help but want a challenge." Oh, Blue Ogre raised his eyebrows, a little surprised. You want to challenge us? That Haki, you are indeed very strong. A strong young human being. Red Ogre Broggy looked at William and recognized his strength. As the former leader of the giant soldier pirates, they are not ordinary giant warriors. Naturally, we can feel the Haki in William that cannot be ignored. Lord William, it's better to be simple and clear to these brainless guys. Looking down at the two giant warriors, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, Demon Oz bared his teeth, raised his fist impatiently, and said with a ferocious smile, "In other words, we want to beat you two to death, or be beaten to death by you two." The extremely arrogant tone made Blue Ogre and Red Ogre stunned. Immediately, the two giant warriors looked at each other, laughed loudly. Gagagagada, kabababa. Next moment, two people laughing, exuding a proud, fighting spirit. They raised their weapons high, aiming at the huge Demon Oz in front of him and William above his head. He responded loudly in unison, betting on the glory of the Elbaf giant warriors. We accept your challenge. Chapter 48, William. It's a matter of life and death. Hey, let's get started. With Blue Ogre Dory and Red Ogre Broggy taking on the challenge. Before William, who was above him, could speak, Oz, who had already been impatient, grinned ferociously and stamped his feet. The huge body shows an exaggerated speed that is completely inconsistent with the size. In an instant, it turned into an afterimage and rushed out like lightning. What a speed! This scene. The pupils of the two giant warriors Dory and Broggy shrank sharply. Some were shocked. I never expected that Oz, a big man, could be so fast. We had to be prepared. In the blink of an eye, Oz has already rushed in front of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. The huge fist mark was dark and shiny, entangled with armament Haki, and struck the two of them like a violent storm. An astonishing wind pressure arose. Sun Shield, two shields wrapped around Haki, firmly standing in front of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. Bang, bang. Loud noises continued. Extremely exaggerated power impact. Let Blue Ogre and Red Ogre keep retreating. Bang, bang. The ground rumbled, cracking as it was stepped on. Powerful air waves kept sweeping across. The sea is boiling. Broggy Dory. Next moment, life and death duels have been going on for nearly 100 years. But the two giant warriors looked at each other with a perfect understanding of each other. Not to be outdone, they launched a counterattack. The shield in his hand suddenly struck out. Block! A violent impact. Oz was taken by surprise. The huge body was directly thrown away. Bang, bang. The huge soles of his feet hit the ground hard. He fell back continuously and almost fell. Kankin keeps his body steady. Gaga, it's been a long time since I met a decent opponent. Dory bared his teeth. His eyes were full of fighting spirit. Kabababa, that's exactly what you said. Broggy is no exception. Looking directly at Ozzy, who was forced to exit, and William with his arms folded above his head, he had not been in a hurry to take action before. Do you want to go together, or one-on-one? Blue Ogre bared his teeth. He is not arrogant or arrogant. Instead, he grew up with Broggy. The two practiced together and fought together. They have a tacit understanding with each other and are better at the Giants' combined attack technique. Some powerful moves require two people to work together to perform them. If we join forces, the effect of 1 + 1 will definitely be greater than 2. One-on-one, there is no challenge for me. Dark shadows surged. The black shadow wings spread out behind him. William glided down directly from the top of the head of the demon Oz. It's a matter of life and death. You two should go together. Single blue ogre or red ogre. For William, there really isn't much of a threat. At the very least, relying on the strange ability of the shadow fruit that makes people unable to guard against, he is innately invincible. But that wasn't the fight he wanted either. Ga, Broggy, what do you say? Blue Ogre Dory looked at his friend. Kabababa, it's been a long time since we fought together, Dory. Red Ogre Broggy laughs. The two of them raised their long swords and giant axes, pointing directly at William and Oz. Then we are not welcome. Realizing the two people in front of me. It is indeed a powerful enemy that cannot be underestimated. The two former leaders of the giant soldier pirates had no intention of asking for help. The blood is starting to boil. William chuckled. In the surprised eyes of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. The black shadow mage stood up and suddenly swelled. Shadow giant. A shadow giant about 20 meters high stood there. Its size is no smaller than that of the two giant warriors Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. Brush followed immediately. William's whole body jumped slightly. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it sank into the shadow giant's body. The various abilities of the shadow fruit tend to be weird and insidious, making them difficult to guard against. But it was rare to face such huge and powerful opponents as Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. He still preferred a punch to the flesh and compete head-on to fully verify his own strength. Come on, let me see the strength of the leader of the giant soldier pirates. William's fighting spirit was high. Although he lost the battle with Moria more than 3 months ago, he gained a lot. Both observation hockey and armament hockey have made great breakthroughs in the life-or-death situation of fighting at all costs. Relying on the ability of the shadow fruit, I gained some of the more profound memories of the swordsman Ryoma, Captain John, and others, and witnessed the growth and battles of those strong men in the past. Whether his skills in swordsmanship, taijutsu, hockey, etc., or related experiences, he has benefited a lot and benefited a lot. After several months of unremitting hard work and training, it can be said that I have reached a higher level compared to before. Even if he didn't use any abilities, he could confidently compete with hockey with his physical skills and hockey, who relied on the ability of the shadow fruit to waste his own Gekko Moria. Not to mention, he now has the ability of the shadow fruit. This is also the confidence that William dares to face Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, the two leaders of the giant soldier pirates. If you encounter a slightly stronger opponent, you will hesitate and shrink back. That's not his style. Shave. William showed madness in his eyes and took the lead. The black shadow giant pressed his feet, and at the moment when the ground cracked, his whole body jumped up like lightning. At the same time, the huge soles of the feet suddenly tore through the air and kicked out violently. Tempest kick. Call out. Accompanied by fierce wind pressure. An exaggerated huge slash appeared out of thin air. He blasted hard at the Blue Ogre and Red Ogre who were changing color in front of them. Without hesitation, dodge out of the way. Boom, boom. The ground roared and smoke billowed. Countless towering ancient trees were cut off ruthlessly. Crashing, crashing. The sea in the distance was ruthlessly cut open. A huge trench appears there. Shocking. What an incredible guy. This is an exaggerated scene. Blue Ogre, Dory's eyes narrowed, and he took a breath of air. Then, let's get rid of a flexible snake first. Demon Oz grinned ferociously. It charged straight out, its fists wrapped around Haki. He suddenly swung out towards the blue ogre Dory who had just dodged and was closest to him. Swipe, swipe. Even though he was still hundreds of meters away, his huge arms still stretched straight with the shadow. The dark and exaggerated fist mark was blasted at Red Ogre Broggy, who was shocked and disbelieving. What? Boom, boom. Chapter 49 2 verses 2. The Collision of Forces Sunshield. Bang, bang. On prehistoric island, accompanied by fierce and unparalleled winds. The violent fist marks were constantly expanding and contracting. Demon Oz is at full strength, bombarding Red Ogre Broggy like crazy, not prepared to give the other party any chance to breathe at all. Boom, boom. The huge shield wrapped around Haki, firmly blocking him in front of him. Is this monster still a person with abilities? He's really strong. Broggy gritted his teeth with a stern look in his eyes. The ground beneath his feet cracked, and his body kept sliding out. Facing the monster-like power of Majin Oz, even he, the former leader of the giant soldier pirates, was at a disadvantage and struggled. Broggy was secretly shocked. In terms of strength, this was the first time that this giant warrior lost to others. Even the descendant of the demon he met at the beginning was not so exaggerated. Although the demon was very big, he was smaller in size and might not be able to surpass himself in strength. But the monster from the ancient giant race in front of him was completely different, and he is actually a person with abilities and can continuously extend his arms, greatly enhance attack power and distance. Broggy, not far away, Dory saw this. The huge body jumped suddenly. The sharp giant sword struck Demon Oz hard. Come, spark sputter. Astonishing energy swept across. Woo! Countless sand and stones were carried by the air waves and surged in all directions. In a split second, Blue Ogre only felt a blur in front of his eyes. A huge black shadow, holding a pitch-black sword, rushed towards them. They stood firmly in front of him and immediately launched a fierce offensive. Clang, clang. The sound of gold and iron clashing is endless. Continuously swinging his sword to block, feeling the exaggerated strength, Blue Ogre did not dare to be careless. Tisk TSK, it's really intense. On the distant sea, there lies the huge ship of terror. Wappa, Perona, Brook, Van Oka, and others are watching the battle from a distance. Looking at the battle between those huge figures, everyone couldn't help but be a little shocked. Incredible. Hot Bagoo was amazed. That giant actually blocked Oz's attack. The size is completely different. It stands to reason that it is impossible to block it. Fan Oka nodded. After all, he is the former leader of the giant soldier pirates. With such strength, it is not surprising. Wappa was non-committal. His eyes were full of fire, full of yearning for such power. After all, how could a strong man who was so valued by Sir William not have two brushes? Boom! At this time, on prehistoric island, the round shield was suddenly raised. Danger after danger, he blocked the sharp blade coming from a tricky angle. Chi, Blue Ogre, who was experienced in combat, waved his sword brazenly and struck at the head of the shadow giant. But William also reacted quickly and controlled the shadow giant. He dodged Blue Ogre's attack in an instant. Shave. That's when Majin stopped punching. But the suppressed Red Ogre Broggy had not yet been able to take a breath. A huge black shadow flashed above, and a loud roar broke through the air. Rocket Seal, a figure that covered the sky, and the sun descended from the sky. The huge feet wrapped around Haki and stretched suddenly. With the force of thunder, it hit hard. This guy, the hair on Broggy's body stood up, and his color changed in shock. Without hesitation, he stormed out. Boom, boom. The loud noise shook the sky. The whole island was shaken. Rocks flew and smoke billowed. Countless birds and beasts were running around in panic. The land with a radius of more than 400 to 500 meters collapsed like a spider web, and groundwater gurgled directly. He was trampled to pieces by Oz's exaggerated blow. It makes people burst into cold sweat. One incredible guy, and Broggy's huge figure rushed out of the billowing smoke and dust. Who? Accompanied by a hurricane. A huge and dark fist mark struck hard again. What? Broggy's expression changed, and he raised a shield in a flash, narrowly blocking Oz's relentless and murderous attack. But he was still overwhelmed by the exaggerated power and flew backwards. Bang! The earth collapsed. Broggy fell to the ground in a panic. At the same time, Blue Ogre Dory struggled to push back the shadow giant in front of him. Came to his side. BRGY, are you okay? Kabababa, it looks like I really underestimate you. A somewhat embarrassed Broggy stood up laughing. Ga, indeed, we can't do it without joining forces. Blue Ogre Dory is laughing too, staring directly at the large and small demon Oz and the shadow giant, who gave people unlimited pressure. Their eyes were awe-inspiring, and they both raised their weapons. Then let them see the strength of the Elbaf warriors. The momentum of the two people became fierce. Between the eyebrows of the shadow giant, William appeared there with his arms folded and staring at the two giant warriors in front of him. Hey, got it. A zombie created as a shadow clone of William himself. Although they are independent living beings, Oz and William still have an inseparable connection. Even though it was their first time fighting together, they still had a better understanding than the pairing of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. The flexible snake. In an instant, two figures, one big and one small. They both waved their fists, wrapping around Haki's fist seal, and blasted wildly at the Blue Ogre and Red Ogre in front of them. Hoof. The sound broke through the air constantly. The atmosphere is constantly being violently rubbed. The violent wind pressure kept raging. It's impossible to open your eyes. Block. Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, two people. Not only did he not flinch, but he held a shield and wrapped around the tyrannical Haki. Accumulating exaggerated power, they all collided together. Boom, boom. Chapter 50 Defeat. Gun of Elbaf. Clang, clang. Bang, boom. On prehistoric island. As time continues to pass, among the several huge figures, the exaggerated and shocking battle continued. Moreover, it gradually became white-hot and more intense. Under the pressure of two powerful men, William and Demon Oz, even Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, the two former leaders of the giant soldier pirates, could not get any benefits but were faintly suppressed. The two giant warriors, who had been fighting for nearly 100 years, had to put aside their past grudges, start to get serious, and join forces to fight back. Ichiryu Phylong, the shadow giant, is under the control of William. Demonstrated the Shimatsuki-style swordsmanship of the swordsman Ryoma. Wah! A huge slash turned into a flying dragon with fangs and claws. He pounced hard on the Blue Ogre in front of him. Tempest kick, Londuan. Majin Oz is not to be outdone. With a press of his foot, he leaped high into the air with an exaggerated figure, and his huge right foot swept out like electricity. Solar shield. Boom, boom. The loud noise shook the sky. Smoke and dust billowed. However, at this moment, William and Oz, who had the upper hand, didn't wait for them to kill each other. Don't underestimate Elbaf's warriors. Dory, give him some color. Not to be outdone, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre directly launched a fierce counterattack. The huge sword and battle axe wrapped around Haki, shining with cold light. The Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, which had been charged for a long time, both rushed out. He struck hard at the shadow giant who bore the brunt. Sun saw, one from the left and one from the right, coming from a flanking attack. Sharp and cunning, murderous. The air was faintly distorted. Shaving flash. Chilla. Although William Observation Haki had already predicted it, without hesitation, he gave up the hard attack and immediately controlled the shadow giant to retreat violently. But it was still a step too late. Faced with Blue Ogre and Red Ogre's long-awaited and powerful kills, the giant sword that was formed by the black shadow and wrapped around Haki was mercilessly chopped off. The shadow giant's abdomen was cut in half, split into two. It can be said to be shocking. Boom, boom. The next moment, don't wait for Blue Ogre and Red Ogre to be happy. The shadow giant that was torn into two pieces looked like a normal person. Two huge fist marks were swung out wildly. The two of them were directly blasted away. Bang, bang. Two huge figures flew out upside down. The ground rumbled and trembled when he stepped on it, and he barely stabilized his figure. Bang, bang. The embarrassed blue ogre and red ogre had blood bleeding from the corners of their mouths. The shield tied to his arm could barely block the relentless and continuous punch marks that followed. Watching the two bodies of the Black Shadow Giant come together again at a speed visible to the naked eye, they thought they could destroy the difficult Shadow Giant, but they were a little shocked. Sure enough, controlling the Shadow Giant is ultimately inferior to oneself. Looking at the Shadow Giant that was cut in two and recovered again, William shook his head helplessly. If he enlarges his body, with his super high nerve reaction ability, he could completely avoid the blow just now. If your skills stop here, then the battle is almost over. William looked directly at Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. The next moment, he separated directly from the Shadow Giant. Suddenly jumped up high. Shadow Revolution, gigantic. Swipe dash. In an instant, in the shrinking eyes of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. As the shadow continued to enlarge, William's entire body expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. It turned into a giant about 20 meters tall, almost the same as Blue Ogre and other giants. The muscles all over his body were tense, and veins popped out. There were wisps of hot steam coming out. The momentum is terrifying. Bipolar, telescopic King Cobra. William's eyes were stern. He directly launched a fierce attack with the Shadow Giant transformed by the Shadow Mage. His hands, which had become as black as ink, suddenly clenched into fists. It's as if it was poured from molten iron, shining brightly, pumping his fist brazenly. Hoof, hoof. In the changing eyes of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, the fist marks all over the sky were like a violent storm, bombarding them crazily. Boom, boom. Kanken held up his shield to block. But in the next moment, something happened that shocked them even more. Each one continues to extend, and the punch marks that come violently turn at incredible angles. Blast towards the blind corner. Bang, bang. Row is Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. For a moment, he was caught off guard and could not completely prevent the intensive and ruthless attack. He was knocked back repeatedly. Blue nose and swollen face. Blood splattered. That's it. At the same time, Demon Oz grinned ferociously. He rushed forward without giving up, in the eyes of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, whose colors changed with horror. Invincible rocket launcher. Two ridiculously big palms came together and wrapped around Haki, who was not weak at all. They stretched backwards, accumulating powerful potential energy. In an instant, the atmosphere was completely overwhelmed. It covered Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, who were unable to dodge and could only block with all their might. It hit hard. Solar shield. Boom, boom. The loud noise shook the sky. The exaggerated power collides there. The earth was directly torn apart, and the violent airwaves rippled layer by layer. It makes it impossible to open your eyes and look straight. Bang, bang. There was no surprise. Two huge figures flew out like cannonballs. Towering trees were directly knocked down from their waists. It dragged long scratches on the ground. Huge trenches were left, extremely exaggerated. Hey, the former leader of the giant soldier pirates should be considered the strongest warrior in Elbaf, right? Demon Oz bared his fangs. It's nothing special. Idiot, don't be careless. They still have reservations and are not serious about it. William, who had grown in size, said in a deep voice with a hoarse voice. Although the strength of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre is roughly clear, it doesn't seem to be as powerful as I expected. But he doesn't look down on them too much. Kabababa. Sudden, a burst of laughter came from the ruins in the distance. I haven't been hurt this badly in a while, Broggy. That's right, Dory. Two huge figures covered in blood and in a miserable state. He slowly crawled out of the ruins, staggering a little, and his extremely heavy footsteps made the ground roar. But it began to exude an aura that could not be ignored. The glory of Elbaf cannot be shamed because of US. Blue Ogre Dory, whose face was covered in blood, was holding a long sword and looking directly at William and Oz in front of him. Then let them witness the spear that our Elbaf giants are proud of. Broggy, who was bruised and swollen, held up the giant axe and bared his teeth in a smile, saying, both men raised their weapons. The terrifying momentum keeps rising. Let's learn from it. Our Elbaf's strongest combat skill. Swinging the long sword diagonally, Blue Ogre looked majestic. He grinned at William and said, the young strong man and the monster from the ancient giant race. Don't die easily. Chapter 51 Hakakov's Six King Gun. Finally, are you going to take action? Looking at Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, they were wielding their weapons, and their momentum was getting higher and higher. It was a bit astonishing. Both Oz and William have glaring eyes with a high-spirited fighting spirit. I'm not unprepared. In the surprised eyes of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, William suddenly took out a stack of shadows from his arms. Countless compressed shadows were struggling there. These are all the shadows of pirates he encountered these days who took the initiative to provoke them and were captured by him. I deliberately kept a part of it on my body in case of emergencies and used it to enhance my own combat power. Instead of struggling to absorb the shadows of those zombie legions, the shadow of 500 people should be enough, right? William's eyes were stern. He suddenly pressed these shadows on his body. The plundered shadows were all absorbed into his body. Thump, thump. The heartbeat, like a drum, kept echoing. The muscles are pulsing, and all the veins are popping out. The casual clothes were torn apart and turned into countless strips of cloth scattered. The figure, which was already over 3 meters tall, was once again expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. 24's hair stood up, originally fair skin. It turned directly into a faint blue, wild and weird. William's entire face was distorted, his veins were exposed, and his eyes were filled with terrifying bloodshot eyes. There it roared like a wild beast. Whoa! An astonishing air wave, accompanied by deafening sound waves, swept across. People can't help but change their color in shock. Lord William. The demon Oz next to him widened his eyes. He stared blankly at William, whose image had changed drastically and was completely unrecognizable. In the blink of an eye, William, who was originally 3 meters tall, had turned into a little giant no less than 5 or 6 meters tall. The momentum is incomparably breathtaking and terrifying. It's daunting. Press down on your feet. The earth cracked, and smoke flew into the air. The exaggerated power makes people's scalp numb. Take a long breath. William waved his hand. His voice became extremely hoarse and signaled Oz not to worry. Although it is far from the limit, but I think it is almost enough. Blue Ogre Dory and Red Ogre Broggy looked straight ahead. The spear that the Elbaf giants are proud of. Next, let me see it. Next moment. Shadow, revolution, gigantic. William's eyes narrowed. The momentum keeps rising. The figure of 5 to 6 meters tall continued to grow with the shadow. In the blink of an eye, he transformed into a person who was second only to the demon Oz and about 30 meters tall. The muscles all over his body are bulging, and the exposed veins are beating constantly, exuding an unparalleled violent aura. It makes people feel a little frightened, and their scalp feels numb. This guy is really not simple. Indeed, this size can be considered as an ancient giant. Look at William's amazing changes. Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, who were already ready to go, were a little surprised. But at the same time, the fighting spirit is even higher. For the glory of Elbaf. They can't lose. Oz, are you ready? William's voice was hoarse. He put his fists together, and his momentum was terrifying. His bloodshot eyes revealed madness. We can't be embarrassed. Certainly, Demon Oz bared his teeth. The ferocious eyes revealed a strong fighting spirit, and he also took a stance. Put your fists together there. The violent momentum keeps rising. Steve, woo woo woo. Seeing this, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre were there laughing. Elbafs. For a moment, their eyes were stern and sharp. It's as if it has been experienced countless times and is an instinct that has been tempered thousands of times. The weapon in his hand traced a rapid trajectory. Without hesitation, they all attacked violently. Hakoko. In an instant, the atmosphere was directly distorted. In the extremely shocked eyes of Wappa, Perona, Habagu, and others who were watching the battle from a distance. A huge shock wave visible to the naked eye suddenly swept out. At an astonishing speed, it blasted hard at William and Demon Oz, who were waiting for them. Six styles. William and Oz are side by side. They are two huge figures, far larger than ordinary giants, with astonishing momentum. With their fists together, the amazing hockey flowed, and they both yelled, "Maximum Will 6 King Gun!" Buzz, buzz. The atmosphere was directly distorted. Facing the huge shockwave, he blasted out without showing any signs of weakness. The whole island was shaken. The earth was directly torn apart ruthlessly. All obstacles were instantly reduced to ruins. Boom! Two shock waves, one large and one small, kept squeezing each other. Finally, William and the demon Oz released a shock wave, crushed ruthlessly. Woohoo woohoo! However, accompanied by fierce and unparalleled wind pressure. The shock wave released by Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. After all, the momentum ran out and gradually dissipated. The sea is boiling and surging. It set off an unimaginable huge wave. Wave after wave swept towards the depths of the sea. 100 is jaw-dropping, breaking into a cold sweat. Gulu, is this the legendary giant's strongest combat skill? Such an exaggerated shockwave. Lord William and Oz actually worked together to block it. After practicing the 6 styles to the ultimate, you are actually so powerful. It's simply too exaggerated. On Prehistoric Island, he stared blankly at the large area of Prehistoric Island that had been reduced to ruins, as well as those tall and majestic figures that stood tall and tall. Witnessing that incomparable blow with their own eyes, Perona, Brooke, Habagu, and others could not help but open their mouths wide and could not close them for a long time. The soul was strongly impacted, extremely shocking. At the same time, on Prehistoric Island, covered in blood and in a state of embarrassment, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre stood there, panting. The weapon in his hand, due to constant fighting over the past 100 years and lack of maintenance for a long time, could not withstand the powerful force and immediately turned into scrap metal and broke apart. Ga, Broggy, we lose. Kabababa, Dory, it looks like this. Looking ahead, the two people who blocked Elbaf's gun were safe and sound. Exhausted and already severely wounded, they were unable to fight anymore, and both fell down. Bang! Chapter 52, The Giant Shadow. Nightmare form in the ruins ahead. Two unattainable figures, one large and one small, stood there. It is indeed the highest combat skill of the giants. It is really ridiculously strong. Watching the two giant warriors fall down, their bodies covered with scars, slightly embarrassed, but not seriously injured, William bared his teeth and smiled. After he trained the 6 styles to the ultimate, he derived the secret 6 King gun based on it, and further improved the 6 King gun. After all, it is more suitable for close combat. To deal with single targets, the power should be more concentrated. The damage range is quite exaggerated, and it can be used by 2 people together. As a long-distance attack, there is still some gap between Elbaf's gun. After all, it is the strongest combat skill that generations of Elbaf giants have developed through continuous practice and improvement. And although he and Majin Oz work well together, 6 King gun is not a combo like Hakoku after all. It cannot be used like the Elbaf spear mastered by Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. Working together, the effect of 1 + 1 is far greater than 2. TSK, I didn't expect their combined attack skills to be so powerful. The Demon Oz on the side is also a little embarrassed, but the injury is not painful to him. Even Sir William and I jointly used the largest 6 King gun, and it was almost unable to stop it. Next moment, William's whole body seemed like a deflated balloon. His figure kept shrinking and returned to its original shape. Brush, swipe, shadows left one after another. But in an instant, the black thread passed through it and was tightly bound. He collected it directly. The load is really big enough. William wiped his sweat. His extremely muscular upper body was naked. A large number of black shadows poured out and turned into trousers. Of course, the fierce battle just now consumed a lot of money, but it won't make him lose his fighting power directly. Sir William, what should we do with these 2 guys? Demon Oz asked directly, pointing to the two giants, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, who were seriously injured and unconscious. You don't have to worry about that. With such a big body, you won't burst the dungeon. Arriving directly in front of Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, William said nonchalantly, "When I cut out their shadows, let the Shadow Mage send them directly to the dungeon and lock them up." He had already specially prepared a cell for the two former leaders of the giant soldier pirates that could accommodate them, so there was no need to worry about not being able to accommodate them. Oz's size is so exaggerated. He was worried that this guy would collapse the newly expanded dungeon. Later, Oz, you will be responsible for leading the zombie army to capture the large beasts that have escaped on the island, especially the pterosaurs with the ability to fly. It doesn't matter whether they are dead or alive, but the corpses must be kept intact, William then ordered. Next, I'm going to build an army of beasts and flying troops. He has long had the idea of forming an army of ferocious beasts. As for whether those ferocious beasts can be tamed, there is no need to worry at all. It only takes a little time to stuff the plundered shadows into their corpses. The beast zombies created can not only ensure 100% loyalty, but also possess human wisdom and perfectly execute combat instructions. No problem. Majin Oz bared his teeth. He turned around and looked around, sizing up the prehistoric island, and began to look for targets. Although some areas have become devastated due to the battle between them, the island is huge enough and most of the area is still intact. Those ancient creatures that have become extinct in other places, such as Triceratops, saber-toothed tiger, Brachiosaurus, and pterosaurs, have all gone to other places. Kajikiri. William stopped talking nonsense, and his eyes sharpened suddenly. The shadows of two giants were directly pulled up by him. In the blink of an eye, the huge shadow was struggling but unable to resist. He cut it off directly. Shadow Ball. Immediately afterwards, William raised his right hand and shook it suddenly. The unreasonably large shadow was continuously compressed at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into two black balls XT. Oh ho ho ho, I'm really shocked. I didn't expect the giant's combat skills to be so amazing. Hiss hiss hiss. As expected of Sir William, even the leader of the giant soldier pirates is no match for you. At this time, Perona, Brooke, Habagu, and others rushed over one after another. He looked at William, who was in a bit of embarrassment but was not seriously injured, looked at the intimidating demon, Oz, standing there as if nothing was wrong, and the two giant warriors lying there covered in blood. Everyone couldn't help but feel a little inexplicable. This battle was too shocking for them, Sebe. It could be said to be an eye-opener. This is... Perona blinked her big eyes. Looking at the two strange black balls in William's hand, he was full of surprise. Okay, stop flattering. William waved his hand. There is no pride or pride. He is very clear that his current strength is still lacking and he needs to work harder. He glanced at the unconscious giant lying there. Brush. I thought in my mind. The shadow person under his feet stood up and turned into a substantial shadow clone. Shadow giant. The next moment, the shadow mage was like an inflated balloon, constantly expanding and enlarging. A huge black shadow, no smaller than Blue Ogre Dory and Red Ogre Broggy, stood there. In the somewhat dumbfounded gazes of Perona and others, it directly showed quite exaggerated strength, simply and crudely carrying Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, two giants that were about 20 meters tall and as big as mountains. Taking heavy steps, he walked towards the ship of terror. Then, the rest is up to you, Oz. William had no intention of staying. The shadow wings spread out and flew straight towards the terrifying ship. Wait for me, Lord William. Perona, who was originally a spirit body, floated in the air and hurriedly followed. Hey! When Wappa saw this, he also turned into lightning. Only the three of them, Brooke, Van Oka, and Habagu, were left looking at each other. I had no choice but to walk back on foot again. They can't fly. Soon, all over the prehistoric island, there were constant roars of beasts and roars. Under the leadership of the demon Oz, the zombie army has launched operations and began to continuously capture and hunt those large beasts. As for the more troublesome pterosaurs with the ability to fly, They're the negative ghosts sent directly by Perona to assist in the capture. On the Ship of Terror, William returned here with Wappa, Perona, Habagu, and others. A shadow ball compressed from Blue Ogre Dory's shadow was absorbed into his body. Next moment, he was shaken all over. He couldn't help but growl. The whole person clenched his fists tightly, and his veins popped out. The body actually expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. The originally perfectly proportioned muscle lines became extremely exaggerated, like an inflated balloon. From being just over 3 meters tall, he once again transformed into a muscular giant 5 to 6 meters tall. The black hair has grown a lot and stands up. His skin color turned even darker blue. The momentum is extremely powerful. Lord William's nightmare form. Is this the shadow of the giants? Looking at William, who was completely different from before, the spirit body left the body, and Perona, who was floating there and watching, was a little shocked. Only one shadow can produce such an exaggerated change. At least it can equal the shadows of hundreds of people. When William fought against the two giants, Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, he had absorbed hundreds of shadows at once, and his whole person had undergone tremendous changes. All of a sudden, the whole person is not just getting bigger. His own speed and strength increased by more than 10 times. Sir William once called it nightmare form. It's almost the same as now. Chapter 53, Beast Legion and Flying Troops. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Probably because the master of the shadow is too powerful. On the training ground, looking at William, who just absorbed the shadow of a giant warrior and directly entered the dream demon form, Hagba said with a strange smile, "After all, that is the shadow of the leader of the giant pirates, not to mention the strongest warrior of the giant clan. But it should be almost done, right?" Wappa, Brook, Van Oka, and others nodded. In the previous battle, the strength shown by Blue Ogre and Red Ogre was obvious to all. It can be said that it was impressive. Even if it's just a shadow, even if I am a shadow fruit user, I can't sustain it for less than half an hour. William relaxed slightly. But this is much better than directly absorbing a large number of mixed shadows. Stuff the plundered shadow into the body of a living person. There will be a huge rejection reaction, and he, the educator, is no exception. Although you can directly stuff a large number of shadows into your own body, it can make one's own strength skyrocket in all directions in a short period of time. But time is limited. The more shadows are absorbed, not only are the restrictions greater, they're also difficult to control. In the shadows of giants like Blue Ogre and Red Ogre, the quality is naturally far from comparable to those of low-level pirates. One of them can rival 500 ordinary shadows, and it is relatively easy to control and will not affect the battle. And for him, if he just absorbs the two shadows into his body to enhance his own combat power, the rejection reaction will not be that big. In contrast, it is undoubtedly more cost-effective. You can consider bringing them with you as a trump card, just in case. Anyway, the current dungeon on the terror ship is almost saturated, plus the next beast army and flying troops. Overall, the number of zombie legions is almost enough. In a short period of time, there is no need to capture more prisoners. However, it should be enough. Ignore Habagu and others. He was digesting the huge amount of information with his eyes closed. But William didn't examine all of Blue Ogre's mixed memories. A giant's long life of hundreds of years would probably burst his head. So I only selectively extracted memories related to hockey, the giant's combat skills, Elbaf spear, etc. I do not know how long it has been. William opened his eyes. A huge shadow broke away from the body and continued to expand. His whole body was like a deflated balloon, and he quickly returned to his original state, his fatigue visible to the naked eye. Holding on to the shadow that just escaped, compress it into a shadow ball the size of a walnut and prevent it from returning to Blue Ogre. Come again. William gritted his teeth. He once again absorbed the shadow of Red Ogre Broggy into his body. Boo. In an instant, the whole person changed again and entered the nightmare form. His black hair stood up and his skin color turned a wild blue. The body shape has become extremely exaggerated. The muscles swelled and the veins popped out. The momentum is amazing. He closed his eyes. Through the ability of the shadow fruit, continue to selectively extract the memories of Red Ogre Broggy. Less than half an hour, William could no longer hold on and return to his original state. There, the whole person couldn't help but breathe heavily, listless and full of exhaustion. Not only did he have to bear the rejection caused by the shadow of the giants, but also because of the huge memory, which gave his brain a splitting headache. Even if it is selectively read, those memories far exceed the information obtained from the shadows of dead people, such as Swordsman Ryoma and Captain John. After all, the shadow of a dead person only carries a part of the owner's deeper memories during his lifetime. Although I'm a little tired, I have gained a lot. William showed a satisfied smile. Although the giant's skills in using haki are a bit rough, they are not without their own uniqueness. In particular, techniques like Elbaf Spear were specially developed for the giant's huge size. Over the long years, generations of giants have continuously tried and improved. He benefited a lot. That afternoon, a beast of varying sizes. He was tied up and placed in the open space outside the training ground. There were some struggling animals, including some dead animals. Dazzling. The number is probably no less than 500. Please give me flowers. The largest among them is the Brachiosaurus. Sir William, there are almost more than 300 beasts like Velociraptor, Triceratops, saber-toothed tiger, Brachiosaurus. A zombie soldier in charge of statistics came forward and reported. As for the large pterosaurs, there are almost 200 heads. William nodded. The black shadows beneath his feet surged and turned into countless tentacles, rushed out directly. In the blink of an eye, the beasts were captured alive one after another. One after another, they were penetrated directly through the Tianling guy, and they fell there wailing one after another. It's better to save yourself some trouble and get it done in one go. Scanning the animal carcasses present, William directly took out a stack of shadows from his arms. A flash of red light flashed in his eyes, and he directly activated the ability of the shadow fruit. Swiss, black tentacles danced, bringing up these shadows. They rushed towards the animal carcasses, respectively. Is this okay? Brooke's eyes widened. Hundreds of zombies were created at once. That's amazing. Perona was stunned and speechless. In comparison, Lord Moria, whom she regarded as her adoptive father, was simply not comparable. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Lord William is indeed Lord William. That guy from Moria is really inferior. Habagu is very excited. The more amazing this adult's performance is, doesn't it mean that his choice is more correct? In my name, I will grant you new life. You will forget the past, be loyal to me, and never betray. Without any delay, William directly made a contract with these shadows. As expected, the bound shadows stopped struggling and nodded dully. Obviously, the contract was established. Swipe. The next moment, shadows that no longer struggle. One after another, they were stuffed into the corpses of those beasts. Soon, a horrifying scene happened. Saber-toothed tigers, mammoths, velociraptors, triceratops, Tyrannosaurus rex, Brachiosaurus, pterosaurs, etc., that should have lost their breath of life. These extremely ferocious animals started to move one after another. They all knelt on the ground and lowered their heads towards William. Owner, Chapter 54. Oz Mace, Mountain Sandbags. Half a month later. Prehistoric Island, Little Garden. The originally beautiful scenery has become devastated and in a mess. The roars of the beasts echoed endlessly. Huge beasts gathered there, roaring from time to time, extremely ferocious. But here's the surprise. Most of them still have a heavily armed figure sitting on their backs, holding knives, guns, sticks, or thermal weapons such as rifles and rocket launchers, formed the Knights of the Beast. Woo-hoo-hoo. There were also a large number of pterosaurs, soaring and circling in the high altitude. And on their backs, there are also people sitting on them. Even those pterosaurs are extremely fast, perform various difficult and dazzling flying maneuvers in the air. It was still stable and did not fall off. Obviously, 520 is well trained. And on a vast coast, a huge figure with red skin, horns and sharp fangs, standing there like an unattainable demon. What is jaw-dropping is that in its hand, it is also holding a shiny black mace that is densely covered with thorns. The exaggerated momentum is intimidating. My scalp feels numb just looking at it. A roaring sound broke through the air. Demon Oz kept swinging his huge mace. Bursts of astonishing wind pressure kept crushing the towering trees around them. On the sea, the waves were undulating, and there were waves. Elbaf's spear, Hakoku. Next moment. It is imposing, swinging the exaggerated mace high. It blasted out towards the distant sea. Call! In an instant. The atmosphere was directly crushed, and the roar was abnormal. Buzz! An astonishing shock wave suddenly swept out. It hit the sea in front of hard. Crashing, crashing. The sea was boiling and violently turbulent. A huge trench appeared there and could not be recovered for a long time. It makes one break into a cold sweat. Unspeakably shocking. Exaggerated mace. It was filled with hot steam visible to the naked eye. Putting the mace on his shoulder, Demon Oz bared his teeth. Sure enough, compared to swords and other things, weapons like this are more handy. Obviously, he is very satisfied with the new weapon he just obtained. Gulu, as expected of Lord Oz. It's really unbelievably strong. The giant's unique skills have been mastered by them. On the sea, there are huge islands and ships lying there. A huge central castle with a splendid golden bell tower is eye-catching. Looking at this astonishing scene, the zombies present could not help but be a little shocked and speechless, especially when they saw the ridiculously huge Demon Oz dancing with the exaggeratedly large mace that was at least tens of meters long. Everyone subconsciously felt a little numb. Even zombies like them who are not afraid of death. I couldn't bear such a gentle touch. TSK, that's really exaggerated. Oh ho ho ho. As expected, this type of weapon is more suitable for that guy Oz. In the past half-month, Lord William has really put in a lot of effort just to forge weapons for him. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The minerals on this island have almost been dug up by that guy Wapple on the training ground nearby, looking at the Devil Oz on the coast from a distance. The cadres such as Perona, Brook, Van Oka, and Hagba Gu, who had just finished their morning exercise, were all filled with emotion. It was not too surprising that Oz successfully used the giant's Elbaf gun, because I've seen him more than once these days. Not far away, the Shandya warrior Wappa was sweating profusely and still did not stop training, lifting extremely heavy dumbbells, gritting his teeth, and exercising unremittingly. A few days ago, I witnessed the battle between William and Oz and the two leaders of the giant soldier pirates. I saw such a powerful force. His desire for power is undoubtedly even greater, desperate to become stronger, harder. On the other side of Prehistoric Island, a roaring sound came from a huge mountain. William himself, who was sweating profusely, had a stern look in his eyes and kept punching, elbowing, swinging his legs, and kneeling. Persevere, hit the mountain in front of you. I didn't use hockey at all. I just used pure physical strength to train like crazy, and the whole mountain was treated as a sandbag. Even the fists, elbows, knees, and other parts were already red, swollen, and even bleeding. Still no intention of stopping. It makes people stunned. To actually use the mountain as a sandbag, it's just watching William's training, riding a giant pterosaur. Van Oka, who came over from the terror ship, was amazed. Even if it's not the first time I see the other party training like this, but every time I still feel it's a bit exaggerated. I finally understand why Lord William has such amazing strength at such a young age. It's not just that superhuman talent. It is also because of this tenacity and tenacious will. Sir William, whether it is Oz's weapon forging or the training of the Beast Legion and the Flying Force, it has come to an end. The swift pterosaur circled and landed. Van Oka jumped down from above and stepped forward to ask William, "Is it time for us to leave?" "Well, it's almost done." William stopped, shaking the sweat off his head. He didn't care about the bloody redness and swelling on his hands. These days, in addition to his daily training on this island, he also often practices the Elbaf gun of the giant clan with the Demon Oz, the Zombie King. He even used the Shadow Mage to turn him into an axe, and used it as a temporary weapon. It can be said that the gain of 0.9 is not small. I have to say, a special zombie created as a shadow clone. Oz perfectly inherited his talent, and his learning ability is quite amazing. After half a month, both he and Oz had almost mastered the giant's special skills. Originally, he would not stay on this island for so long, but considering the exaggerated size of Demon Oz, in order to forge suitable weapons for him, William specially asked the zombie army to explore the prehistoric island. As a result, we found a copper iron mine with relatively mixed composition and not too large reserves. So he let the Shadow Mage possess Wapple. With the ability of Munch Munch Fruit, the mines are mined and alloys are extracted continuously. A large number of zombie soldiers cooperated, plus Oz's own efforts. Just barely forged the mace. It's really time to leave. Chapter 55, Son of the Devil? Sand Crocodile? Little ones, let's set sail. Oh, not long after. The crisp, ethereal, and melodious golden bells echoed constantly. Following William's order, countless Zombie King soldiers began to get busy. The ship of terror set sail again and slowly sailed away from Prehistoric Island. Lord William, are you going to Bucklow Island next? On the training ground, with the ability to repair fruits, treating William's inevitable injuries due to high intensity and crazy training. Dr. Hagba Gu is asking there. I should have arrived a long time ago, but something happened one after another along the way to delay me. William nodded, chuckled, and said, I'm looking forward to it, although I don't know how much harvest that treasure map can bring. But that's part of the beauty of treasure hunting adventures. It's like opening a blind box. He 24 he, is it a treasure? Perona's eyes were shining with anticipation. Not just her, Brooke, Van Oka, Habagu, and others are no exception. Although they have found the legendary Golden Land and obtained unimaginable starfish gold, but still full of endless interest in treasure hunting. Lord William. At this time, a zombie soldier held a phone bug and trotted over. The black market intelligence dealer you contacted earlier has called. Oh, William raised his eyebrows. Got the phone bug. Without any intention of making small talk, he went straight to the point. Rock, is there any good news? The phone bug simulates an old silhouette, a pair of somewhat cloudy eyes full of shrewdness. But the price. You know, the target you want to inquire about is the son of a devil that the world government spares no effort to hunt for. I am taking a huge risk. Gotta pay more. The price is easy to negotiate, as long as your information satisfies me. William looked calm and spoke calmly. As an elite agent of CP9, he naturally knows the power of these underground intelligence agents. Therefore, I have already contacted them secretly through other channels. He even deposited a large sum of money with an intelligence agent in advance, mainly to facilitate long-term cooperation. 2 days ago, she appeared on Cordo Island on the H3 route, seemingly wanting to explore an ancient ruins. The price is negotiated. The other party did not make any further excuses and told the information. I heard that members of CP5 rushed over directly, but failed to catch anyone. But I think she can't run far. I'm very satisfied with your news. William chuckled. In 2 days, given Nico Robin's current situation, he really couldn't run very far. He should be able to find the other person directly. A pleasure to work with. Click. Watched William hang up the phone. Perona on the side asked curiously, Lord William, are you looking for the son of the devil? Well, this is a rare all-round talent. William smiled and nodded. For Nico Robin, he is determined to win. Without hesitation, he directly ordered Habagu and others. I want to go out for a while. You continue to move towards Backrow Island. If I find someone, I will go over and meet you. Not to mention special ability users such as Wappa, Perona, and Van Oka. There's only Demon Oz, the strongest zombie, and the zombie army led by him. In the first half of the Grand Line, as long as you don't directly provoke Marine, you can go sideways. What's more, it still has the skin of 7 warlords of the sea. Naturally, he wasn't worried about anything going wrong. Clear. Fan Oka, Habagu, and others nodded. Everyone knows that Nico Robin, the son of the devil, who was offered a bounty of 79 million belly by the world government at the age of 8, has a special status. It is impossible to directly drive the ship of terror and pass by with great fanfare. After all, they're still in the stage of accumulating strength, not ready to break up with Marine and officially enter the New World. Is there a record pointer to Cordo Island? William didn't delay. A zombie navigator was directly called. No, but Cordo Island is close to the kingdom of Roland-Sini, and we have a permanent record pointer there. The navigator was busy checking the charts and reporting to William. Then give me the record pointer of the Roland-Sini kingdom. Yes, Lord William. That afternoon, a short rest relieved the fatigue caused by high-intensity training and restored William's physical strength. He directly brought some dry food and fresh water, as well as the permanent record pointer of the Roland-Sini kingdom, and left the ship of terror under the watch of Wappa, Perona, Van Oka, and others. Oh, soft, the black shadow wings fluttered slightly. William soared into the sky, thinking about the distant sky. Nico, Robin, I believe we will meet again soon. Looking at the undulating sea, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Thinking back to that beautiful and charming face, he smiled softly. About 4 years ago, William, who had just turned 13, he was sent to West Blue to secretly assassinate a member of the Overlord tribe who had repeatedly spoken out loudly in public, 060 criticizing the world government for its inaction. I happened to encounter Robin, who was being chased by CP agents. I killed several CP pursuers and let Robin go. He left a message looking forward to the future meeting between the two parties. In his stunned eyes. Then he walked away. Noon the next day, the sun was shining brightly and there was no cloud in the sky. Flying with shadow wings, William, who was tired of travel, rushed to the kingdom of Roland-Sini. Swipe, he landed from the deserted coast, changed his appearance, and disguised himself as the swift swordsman Yasuo. Powerful observation hockey. It instantly enveloped the entire small island. I didn't sense the aura of Nico Robin, the son of the devil. Aren't you here? William raised his eyebrows. I asked about nearby islands and bought a few permanent record pointers. When preparing to leave, a merchant ship that had just docked in the port. A rather strong aura caught William's attention. But no one was seen at all. I only had time to see a pool of sand turning into a small tornado, quietly flying into the distance. William's eyes narrowed, and he was surprised. Hey, Sand Crocodile. Chapter 56, G2 Branch, Nico Robin, Isla Blanca, adjacent to the kingdom of Roland-Sini. It is a town directly governed by the world government. What happened? There haven't been any pirate troubles recently, right? Those guys suddenly appeared here. However, this day, the port of this relatively prosperous town, the residents of those towns and business travelers were looking at the menacing warships on the sea. I couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. On board the large warship headed by, in addition to the seagull flag, the words G2 are clearly marked. It was announced to the outside that this was a warship of the G2 branch of the base, directly under the naval headquarters. Vice Admiral arrived at Lanka Island. A Marine major stood erect and saluted. He reported to the bald old man in front of him who was wearing a brown suit, a cloak of justice, long brown hair, and a somewhat bloated figure. According to CP information, it was suspected that someone saw Nico Robin, the son of the devil, from this morning. A merchant ship disembarked and blended into the town. Oh, Vice Admiral, the base director of Marine G2 branch, raised his eyebrows. He was leading the Marine fleet and was chasing a group of pirates who had just broken into the Grand Line and were causing trouble along the H3 route. As a result, I received a call from the headquarters saying that the personnel of CP Cypherpole had received the news and found that Nico Robin, the son of the devil wanted by the world government, was nearby and asked him to personally lead people to arrest him. Nico Robin is not an ordinary criminal. Let me know. Gumir came to the bow of the ship, looked at the town ahead, and ordered in a deep voice, seal the port, strictly prohibit any ship from going to sea, search from house to house, and never let her go. All personnel have entered the first level of combat readiness and are preparing to land. On the port, a beautiful figure wearing a cloak and disguising herself just about to board a merchant ship, looked at the unkind fleet. Without hesitation, he gave up boarding the ship and quietly retreated to the town, mixed in a crowd. Search me. Don't let Gekko Robin get away. This woman is very cunning and good at disguise. We must not let her escape. Any suspicious target will be arrested directly. Not long after, there were some riots in the town. A Marine personnel armed with live ammunition landed one after another and began to search. In a deserted alley, wearing a black cloak, escaped from a group of Marines. He leaned against the wall and breathed a sigh of relief. Under the cloak, a gorgeous face was revealed. Stop! At this time, a dozen Marines came running over. I saw a suspicious figure wearing a cloak, shouting loudly. Shave. Gekko Robin's expression changed. Without hesitation, he stepped hard. Brush. The whole person was like an afterimage. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the sight of those Marines. Disappeared? Am I dazzled? The person just now was obviously still here. The Marines who had just raised their guns and were about to block the opponent couldn't help but look at each other. That was sixth form just now. Marine Ensign, the leader, reacted a little shocked. Obviously, he recognized the 16 advanced physical skills that only a few elites in Marine can access. He took the lead and chased after her, shouting loudly without looking back. No, she is definitely Gekko Robin. Chase her. Notify the higher-ups immediately. Yes, and at this time, no one found out. The other side of the island, a black shadow flew over and landed in the deserted wilderness. Oh, looking at the fleet forming a formation on the sea, preparing to block the island, William raised his eyebrows. Marine? Interesting. But finally my efforts were not in vain. I found you. Close your eyes slightly. The powerful observation Haki directly enveloped the entire island. He instantly locked onto the aura that was somewhat familiar, but much stronger than 3 or 4 years ago, and confirmed the other party's identity. Diadic, on the rooftop of a 3-story building. A beautiful figure kept stepping through the air. Bursts of smoke erupted from beneath its feet and landed on the rooftop. He immediately hid in a corner. Gekko Robin breathed a sigh of relief. He crossed his hands and closed his eyes, dazzled. While the petals were flying, eyeballs suddenly and silently popped up on the walls in many hidden directions of the building. There he secretly observed the Marines coming and going, constantly searching around. Have you mastered Moonwalk yet? There was a chuckle. Robin, who was using his ability to monitor Marines' movements and was ready to evacuate at any time, was suddenly startled. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly opened my eyes. Immediately, his pupils shrank sharply. A tall figure wearing a black windbreaker appeared in front of me. Lu Luanhua. She did not hesitate and crossed her hands. 6 hands suddenly grew on William's body. He strangled his arms and head tightly and twisted him backwards. Iron body. William looked sharply. The muscles all over his body were tense and instantly became like steel, unable to be shaken. Robin's expression changed. No matter how you use your flower fruit ability, try your best to control it. Neither of them could twist the opponent's steel-like body. What? You haven't seen me for a few years, and you want to kill me when we meet. Looking at the beautiful figure in front of him, William chuckled. Hear the words. Robin couldn't help but be stunned. Subconsciously staring at the man in front of him, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. Brush. He loosened his hands. The arms that bound William turned into petals and disappeared. Hello, Wong Wong. Obviously, they recognized each other. It's you. Robin took a deep breath, a little unbelievable. Long time no see. I'm very skilled in using the 6 styles. Looking at the Devil's Son, who was much more mature than 4 years ago and exuding an alluring charm, William smiled and said, It seems that you haven't been lazy in the past few years. Sorry, I was in a hurry just now and didn't expect it to be you. Before the two of them could exchange greetings, someone appeared in the sky. A seaweed was circling back and forth, calling out. He seemed to have noticed them, reminding Marine. Annoying guy. William frowned and flicked finger pistol in Robin's miniature gaze. An invisible air blade shot out like lightning. He accurately shot the hay-donking, causing a bloody flower. It whined and fell down. Oh, chapter 57, the worst traitor in history? How? On the rooftop. He looked at Robin, who was staring blankly at him. William opened his arms and chuckled. Aren't you happy to see you again, old friend? Are we friends? Looking at William in front of him, Robin came back to his senses and bit his lip gently. The closed heart couldn't help but ripples a little. Why are you here? She looked at William's handsome face and couldn't help joking. I heard that you have betrayed the world government. You can't be sent to catch me, right? Compared with the childishness 4 years ago, the man in front of me has matured a lot and become more spiritual. 4 years ago, if it hadn't been for this man, she would have been captured by the world government. Before the other party left, he directly threw her a 6-position training manual, giving her the ability to protect herself. Only then was he able to evade the pursuit of Marine and CP time and time again. She has been looking forward to seeing each other again in the future. Unexpectedly, the two people reunited under such circumstances. As early as 4 months ago, she had already seen the news in a newspaper about Obask William causing trouble in Eni's lobby and betraying the world government. I also saw a wanted warrant for the other party with a direct reward of 200 million belly. The shocking news really shocked her. 750, some couldn't believe it. Surround this building. We must not let her escape. At this time, due to High Donking's reminder, Marine nearby reacted quickly and immediately surrounded the building. There are other Marines around who heard the news and are coming over one after another. They found us. Robin's expression changed when he heard the movement. It doesn't matter, no matter how many bugs there are, they're just bugs. William shrugged his shoulders and didn't care. I just saw it. They are the Marine branch of the G2 branch directly under the naval headquarters. Looking at the specifications of the warships and the size of the fleet, the person who took the lead is probably the naval headquarters vice admiral. Robin was a little anxious and reminded him there. Just a Marine vice admiral, not an admiral of naval headquarters. William stepped forward. He caressed her pretty face and said with a chuckle, We haven't seen each other for a few years, and she has become even more beautiful. Let's get rid of them and find a place to chat. After hesitating for a moment, Robin nodded. Seeing that William was confident, he gradually calmed down. Although, Sif, I don't know why the other party is so confident. The person in front of me is, after all, a strong man with a bounty of more than 200 million belly. In particular, his eyebrows reveal a calmness that belies his age. I believe it's not that reckless. There are quite a few people. William looked relaxed. When I arrived at the edge of the rooftop, I looked down at the Marine personnel who were coming in a steady stream, as well as the panicked tourists and people who were running hastily into the distance. Robin was about to say something. William's eyes sharpened suddenly. Buzz dash, an invisible wave swept out of him in an instant. Center it. From this, building the port is less than a kilometer away. The tyrannical conquerors hockey impacted in all directions. A Marine, businessman, civilian, everyone's body was shaken violently, as if their brains had been hit by a powerful mental shock. Their eyes turned white, they were foaming at the mouth, and they fell to the ground one after another. In the blink of an eye, Marines were supposed to rush over and surround the building. Most of them fell on the street. UXU, what happened? Almost lost consciousness. Damn it. Is he a person with some kind of ability? Within the town, a few Marine Commodore and Rear Admiral were safe and sound. But looking at the fallen Marines and people around them, their faces were full of shock. There are also those school officers from the headquarters who are usually very capable, staggering, and barely maintaining consciousness. Didn't fall down directly. Look at this horrific scene. Robin couldn't help, but his pupils shrank, and he lost his voice in shock. How is it possible? They all fainted. Don't be so surprised. It's just a trivial trick. William shrugged and said with a chuckle, The real trouble is not these miscellaneous fish, but the ones that haven't fallen yet. Stunning thousands of people at once is no small trick. Robin took a deep breath and looked at William blankly. This man, who was 5 or 6 years younger than her, yet was offered a bounty of 200 million belly by the world government, was actually so powerful. No wonder he was so confident just now. Full of confidence. Damn, Conqueror's hockey. At the same time, not far away, The base commander of the G2 branch, Vice Admiral, who was about to rush over, noticed Hyde Donking's reminder. His face changed drastically. Not caring about anything else, he ran over. Scattered around, there were about 30 or 40 generals and officers who maintained their combat effectiveness and did not faint. People gathered together one after another and followed Gumir. Gumir arrived in a hurry. Looking at the figures standing on the rooftop with Robin, his pupils shrank sharply. He couldn't help, but his expression changed drastically. Hell William and Nico Robin. What? Hell William? Gulu. He is the CP9 traitor Obask William, who killed the top executive of CP9 and the top leaders of world government, caused a big fuss about Enies Lobby's defection, and was offered a bounty of 200 million belly by world government. He mastered all 6 moves at the age of 13, and is known as the strongest CP9 genius in Enies Lobby in the past 800 years, as famous as Rob Lucci. This man, who is making a big fuss at Enies Lobby, is considered by the CP to be the worst traitor in history. Why is he here? There's no mistake. It's exactly the same as the one on the reward list. It's him. Devil's son Nico Robin is here too. A Marine officer who was still conscious came one after another. Looking at Hell William standing with Nico Robin on the rooftop, they couldn't help but be shocked. Someone else took out a stack of reward lists from his arms and flipped through them quickly, confirming the identities of the 2 people. Vice Admiral Gumir, I didn't expect that a big shot like you would actually know me. That's such an honor. Looking at Gumir below, who had a big belly and was wearing a cloak of justice, William naturally recognized him and smiled. Said, when he was in CP9, I have looked up personnel information about Marine. Not only Gummel, the commander of the G2 branch, but also most of the named officers in the entire Marine Corps. William has paid attention to them. Even more, it's not just spies placed outside by CP. There are even many spies sent out by naval headquarters to lurk among the pirates in the New World. William knew everything. Chapter 58 William. If you can't do it, let Admiral come. Conqueror's hockey on the street. Looking at the chaos all around, the Marine personnel fainted there. Looking up at the 2 figures on the rooftop, or staring at William himself. I didn't expect the rumors to be true. I really underestimated you. What do you want a guy like you to do here? He looked evilly, holding the katana that had already been unsheathed, pointing directly at William above, and asked in a deep voice, do you want to get involved in the ancient war through Nico Robin, a scholar of O'Hara? What? On the rooftop. Robin was shocked when he heard this. Subconsciously looking at William beside him, his heart sank. He pursed his lips slightly, his eyes a little complicated. In the end, everyone wants to take advantage of themselves. Will she be alone, after all? No need to talk nonsense. I will take Nico Robin away. William had no intention of responding, but looked down at the hostile Gummel, smiled, and said, can you please get out of the way? It can't be done. As long as I'm here, you can't even think of leaving with Nile. Holding the blade. Looking directly at William above. Gummel's eyes were stern, and he spoke coldly. Want to stop me? William looked at Gumir, the Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, and shook his head directly. You can't do it. Let the Admiral come. Robin on the side heard this and couldn't help but feel confident. Looking at William in astonishment. It's really confident enough. The Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, who is the Supreme Commander of the C2 branch, is not looked down upon. And the Marine Admiral, who represents the highest combat capability of the Naval Headquarters, comes in person? A whole. Too arrogant. Damn guy, a mere traitor from CP9, actually dares to look down on us. The Marine generals and officers gathered there, who maintained their combat effectiveness, were all furious and gnashing their teeth. Looking at William on the rooftop, he glared angrily. Stop talking nonsense there, you stinking brat. William's contemptuous tone. Even Gumir couldn't help but be angered. With a strong pressure under his feet, his whole body jumped up. Holding 2 swords in his hands, he rose into the air on the moonwalk and rushed towards William. When Lousy was fighting the pirates on the sea, you were not even born yet. Obask William. Diadig. Don't wait for Gummel to rush in. William showed no sign of weakness and stepped forward to greet him. His eyes were full of contempt and extremely arrogant. then the reason why a mediocre character like you can survive until now is because you are self-aware and don't dare to provoke those big pirates at all, right? But it's a pity that now that you are old, you have poor eyesight. If you lose, you will die. Tempest kick Landon. The words have not yet finished. In the shocked eyes of Robin and Marine, he was filled with murderous intent and kicked out with his right foot like lightning. Whoosh! The atmosphere was torn apart directly. A huge light green slash suddenly broke through the air. He blasted at Gumir, who changed his color in shock. Unstoppable. What? Gumel's hair stood up. The two swords staggered and blocked immediately. Kong. The powerful and heavy slash directly knocked him down in midair. The whole person kept retreating violently, causing the ground to crack. Barely able to steady his body. Open it for me. The muscles in his arms were tense. Gritting his teeth, he lifted it with all his strength. The astonishing slash was blasted into the distance. In the disbelieving eyes of those Marine officers, several buildings in a row were cut diagonally like tofu, and the cuts were extremely smooth. Loud noises were heard, and the cut floors slid down one after another. Large amounts of smoke and dust billowed into the air. It makes people burst in a cold sweat. It's unbelievable. It's really incredibly strong. This is an exaggerated scene. Even Robin couldn't help but widen his eyes and was speechless. 6 forms, are they really that strong? In the past 4 years, I have been forced to hide and flee from the pursuit of the world government. But even most of the time is spent on archaeology, constantly exploring ancient ruins and looking for historical texts, trying to unravel the blank 100 years, history, and fulfill the last wish of O'Hara scholars. Privately, I still try my best to take out a certain amount of time and persist in practicing hard in secret. In particular, the 6-style manual that William threw to her had his own annotations and experiences on it, which made her practice more effective and many problems could be solved easily. With his extraordinary mind and talent, he has already mastered most of the 6 moves. Tempest Kick, she also barely mastered it. But that power, exhibited with William, it's a world of difference. What kind of monster is this? Is he really only 17? Is this the true strength of Hell William? Staring blankly at the collapsed buildings, looking at the lower half of the floors that were still intact, the smooth cuts on them. One Marine officer swallowed. Everyone couldn't help but shed a cold sweat. I just feel my scalp is numb. Don't be intimidated, idiots. Take a deep breath. Gumer's face was solemn, and he was scolding. Full of solemn eyes, he stared at William, who had just walked onto the street with a relaxed expression. He no longer had the previous contempt. He is known as the strongest CP9 genius in Eni's lobby in 800 years. With such strength, of course, I will deal with Hell William. You are responsible for catching Nika Robin. You must not let her escape. For a while, the morale of each Marine officer was lifted. He barely calmed down and responded loudly. Oh, looking at Vice Admiral in front of him, William was full of fun. Do you think you can stop me? Don't underestimate the Vice Admiral of Naval Headquarters, Hell William. Vice Admiral shouted angrily. Shave. He stepped hard. Holding 2 knives in hand, he rushed forward suddenly. The extremely sharp blade, gleaming with cold light, struck hard at William in front. William looked calm, both fists wrapped around Hockey. Without showing any weakness, he started a confrontation with him. It seems that there is no concern whether Nika Robin will fall in a crisis. Up, get Nika Robin at the same time. A Naval Headquarters Rear Admiral holds a katana. He immediately began to command the officers who still retained consciousness under the impact of Conqueror's Hockey and were constantly gathering from all directions. Among them, there were many Marine officers who were not too weak and quickly woke up one after another. In a short period of time, there were already hundreds of people. Robin, who was watching the battle above, looked grim. Looking at some Marines, they were holding rifles and rocket launchers and pointed them at themselves. Crossing his hands, he decisively activated Flower Fruit's ability. Twirling flower, the petals are flying. On the body of a Marine officer, arms sprouted one after another and wrapped tightly around them, grabbing their limbs, necks, and other parts. Hand, grown from body, Damn it, what the hell is this? Let go, Everyone, be careful. This is Nico Robin's devil fruit ability. However, I was completely unprepared to give these Marines too many opportunities to resist. I saw Robin's intertwined hands, and their palms suddenly clasped together. I'm sorry, I don't want to be caught yet. The arms that grew out of the Marine personnel directly grabbed their bodies and twisted them mercilessly. Chapter 59, Robin's Strength, Tempest Kick Guy What? KG. Chaos on the streets, accompanied by scattered joints breaking. The sound makes people's teeth sore. There were bursts of shrill screams, and Xia Ran stood up. This is really a terrifying scene. Many Marine generals and officers who were a little far away and had not yet been targeted could not help but be shocked. Some couldn't believe it as they looked at their companions whose body joints were broken, and then looked at Nico Robin above the rooftop. I couldn't help but feel a chill coming out of me. Some scalp tingling. Damnable woman. Don't be afraid. Everyone, this is the ability of flower fruit. It's not a big deal. Just use the iron body to defend. If those hands are injured, the body will also be injured. This is the weakness of her ability. There were a dozen Marine generals and officers who had mastered some of the 6 forms. They immediately tensed up their muscles and performed this physical skill specially used for defense. Ki suddenly became powerful and his body became extremely hard. Although the arms that grew out of the body tried to twist the body, it was still as solid as steel and could not be easily twisted. And some people directly pointed out the weakness of flower fruit. Apparently Marine has already done relevant intelligence work. Iron body. Robin looked at the Marine officers present and raised his eyebrows. When the opponent wants to use the sword to chop the arms growing on his body, the ability was removed without hesitation. Fire. Use a bazooka. Blow up that building for me. Soon, with several powerful and experienced Marine Rear Admiral in command there. The well-trained Marines who came one after another launched a direct counterattack. They raised their guns and pointed them at Nico Robin on the rooftop, and they all pulled the triggers. Dynasty dead. Heavy bullets. It keeps pouring out, accompanied by a few scattered rockets, accompanied by bursts of loud noises. Fires shot into the sky and thick smoke billowed. Waves of astonishing air waves swept across the place. Moonwalk. However, midair, a beautiful figure had already appeared out of nowhere. The whole person walked through the air and landed on a 2-story building opposite. Unscathed. There she is. Damn, it's Moonwalk. Why does she have the 6 styles that only a few Marine officers are qualified to master? Stop talking nonsense. Everyone, come on, don't let her run away. We must not let this woman go. Watching Nico Robin rushing out in midair on the moonwalk, safe and sound. All the Marines present were shocked. Some couldn't believe it. Hell, William is just a traitor of CP9. Why does even Nico Robin, the son of the devil, know such advanced physical skills as the 6th form? But without hesitation, they all raised their swords, guns, and cannons and attacked with murderous intent. Endless. 30 rounds of flowers. Looking at Marine, rushing forward reluctantly, ready to fire. Robin crossed his hands and activated his ability directly. Finger pistol, 1 arm at a time, suddenly sprouted from these Marines' bodies. Moreover, the index finger stabbed out like a bullet. Chi. OG. Blood splattered. A Marine screamed. The white jade finger penetrated his body mercilessly, and he fell into a pool of blood. But there were also those who had quick reactions and good strength, and decisively used their iron body again to block the fatal blow. Each and every one of them had cruel looks on their faces, ready to cut off those arms. But I didn't expect Nico Robin to be so cunning, so he gave up decisively when he failed. Before the blade fell, they had already turned into countless petals and dissipated. Sorry, I haven't mastered iron body. Robin smiled slightly. She's not fond of fighting. She fights and then retreats. Without hesitation, I walked on the moonwalk again and headed towards another building. Obviously, she has already possessed considerable strength, but she has always kept a low profile and hid her clumsiness. As she continued to practice the 6 moves, her physical fitness continued to improve, and Paramecia, flower fruit's abilities became more and more skillful, and she developed many new moves. But except for using physical skills such as shaving and moonwalk to evade capture, Robin rarely uses the 6 styles to fight the enemy. Because he was put on a bounty of 79 million Baileys by the world government at the age of 8, and he spared no effort to hunt him down. He has experienced the ups and downs of human kindness, experienced countless betrayals, and has seen through the greed of human nature. Continuously growing in adversity and setbacks, his mind becomes more mature and cautious. She has seen with her own eyes the strength of the Admiral of Headquarters and how terrifying it is. Naturally, it is clear that if she openly shows her strength in front of world government personnel, she will definitely attract stronger Marine or CP agents. It will be more troublesome then. Therefore, he has always deliberately hidden his strength. Unless absolutely necessary, he would not show his strength in front of others easily. Therefore, her bounty has remained at 79 million Baileys, unchanged. But in today's situation, it's obviously impossible not to be more serious. Come, King! Sparks sputter. The blade and the fist seal were clashing together. Gomir, who was fighting with William, caught a glimpse of this scene. I couldn't help but be shocked and couldn't believe it. That woman, how is it possible? Why does this woman Nico Robin know the 6 styles? Moreover, it seems that he is already very skilled. This cannot be accomplished in a day or two. Hey, you're surprised, aren't you? I taught you. William bared his teeth, full of amusement. But under Gummel's horrified gaze, he laughed ferociously. But are you sure you still have time to pay attention to this? Finger pistol Gatling gun. In an instant, he suddenly launched an offensive. The fingers wrapped around Haki turned into afterimages that filled the sky, and holes shot out. Like a dense barrage of bullets, it attacked Vice Admiral crazily, whose expression changed greatly in front of him. It's so dizzying that you can't react at all. The 2 swords kept swinging. Block the finger pistol that keeps attacking. Somewhat confused. Why? Is it the Vice Admiral of Naval Headquarters? William was sarcastic there. Launching such an offensive still seems to be easy. The strength between the 2 is a matter of judgment. Don't get carried away. The somewhat embarrassed Gomir was angered. With a step of his feet, he retreated violently and distanced himself from William. Don't wait for it to come without mercy. The 2 swords were waved out boldly. Dual sword style, whirlwind slash. A cold light flashed. 1.7 sharp blade. A swift trajectory was drawn. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 shocking slashes. Like a whirlwind, spinning violently. Cut hard. Hey, this looks cool. William's figure soared into the air, turning 360 degrees at an incredible speed. The right foot swept out smoothly, but unfortunately, it's not enough. Foot guy bird. A loud roar broke through the air. A huge light green slash shot out like lightning. In Gumir's shrinking gaze, in the blink of an eye, the slash turned into a huge, ferocious bird, fluttering its wings and swooping down. It was a loud bang. No surprises. 2 astonishing whirlwind strikes were directly defeated. The huge flying bird's attack was unstoppable, tearing apart the atmosphere, and its momentum continued unabated. He hit Gumir hard, whose expression changed greatly. Chapter 60 Crush. The death of Gumir sparks flew. The sound of metal clashing was endless. The huge bird slash was unstoppable, even though Gumir's double swords were wrapped around Haki and he tried to block it. But he was still pressed hard by the incomparable impact force and crashed into the building behind. Boom! The amazing bird slash continued to move. One building after another was cut open mercilessly. The roar continued and the smoke and dust rolled. It made people sweat. What? Gumir Vice Admiral? How is it possible? This horrifying scene. The Marine officers changed their faces and screamed. They never thought that the experienced Jimmel, who they thought was a great man, would be suppressed so easily. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. It's too strong. Even Robin, looking at the overwhelming bird slash, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. No wonder William was so arrogant just now, saying that the Vice Admiral of Naval Headquarters was not good enough and wanted the Marine Admiral to come over. Obviously, Gumier, the vice admiral of Marine, was not a match at all. A hole. 24. Damn black prison. Go to hell. At this moment, two Marine officers rushed up directly, staring at William, who was hovering in the air on moonwalk and had not yet landed. Without hesitation, he pointed the rocket launcher at him, gritting his teeth and pulling the trigger. Swish! Swish! Two rockets broke through the air. Fires shot up into the sky. Smoke and dust rolled up. Fly finger pistol. In an instant, two air blades shot out like lightning. Accurately, they instantly pierced the hearts of the two Marines, bringing up a blood flower. Ah! The two figures screamed and fell directly. The Marines present couldn't help but shrink their pupils. Some chills came straight out. Gurgle! That monster! Looking at the figure that walked out of the explosion unscathed, all of them swallowed their saliva, with horror and fear in their eyes. I just felt their scalps tingling. Look! Shave and moonwalk. This is how they are used. William turned his head, looking at Robin, who was watching him on the rooftop of a two-story building not far away. He said with a chuckle. The next moment, swish, he pressed his feet, and the whole person turned into a residual image. He rushed out like lightning. Death razor. In a flash, his legs were already wrapped around Haki. It kept flowing like a flying sakura flower. Swoosh. In the air, a sharp trajectory that was almost invisible to the naked, I rose up. A flash of cold light passed by. The terrifying trajectory was as fast as lightning. In the horrified eyes of those Marines, it came in an instant. There was no time to block or dodge. Cage, blood splashed, accompanied by screams. The sharp cold light was unstoppable. Even if there were several powerful Marine officers trying to block it, they still couldn't defend, let alone avoid it. Pa, because bursts of explosions continued in the air. William's attack was not just a straight line, but it turned left and right, like a ghostly trajectory. Unpredictable chi. In a moment, it had already passed through their bodies. One figure after another fell directly into a pool of blood. The bodies were separated. It's scary. Witnessing this bloody and horrific scene, Robin's pupils shrank sharply, and he couldn't help but take in a breath of cold air and feel a chill running down his spine. If she faced this offensive, she might not be able to dodge it either. Will be torn directly. Heads fell to the ground. Well, it's almost done. There's only one left. William's figure appeared. Step into the atmosphere and land steadily. His expression was relaxed. His face was not red, and he was out of breath. Obviously, the offensive just now was not stressful at all for him, and it didn't take much effort. Obask William, in the ruins hundreds of meters away. Gumier, covered in blood, rushed up. Looking at this bloody scene, my eyes were filled with tears, and I shouted, "A hole! I'm going to kill you!" Shave. He stepped hard, showing amazing speed. He rushed in front of William like an afterimage. The two swords wrapped around Haki and swung wildly. The sound of gold and iron clashing continues. William easily blocked Gumier's attack. He looked directly at the Marine Vice Admiral, his mouth full of sarcasm and disdain. What? The dignified Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral is so out of control. But it's a pity that Fanran can't change the strength gap between you and me. William stepped down. His figure was like lightning, and he disappeared in front of Gumier in an instant. Finger pistol, lightning. Kung Gummel's hair stood up. Relying on observation Haki's prediction, he narrowly turned around and blocked the finger pistol with a knife, which suddenly attacked as fast as lightning. I said, "If you lose, you will die." Another word came to my ears, but not before Gummel's pupils dilated. The blade in his hand was about to strike out in anger. Brad. William's figure disappeared again like a ghost. The next moment, suddenly he came to his senses. Come! Spark sputter. William, who appeared there instantly, put his fist together. A frightening momentum could not help but rise. This move is from his sixth form, Yugai. Gumier's pupils shrank sharply, feeling intense uneasiness. Although he was angry just now, he didn't really lose his mind directly. Without hesitation, he stepped hard, about to retreat violently. It's useless. It's time to end. 603 bursts of afterimages. William follows him everywhere, full of murderous intent. 6 King Gun. 2 fist seals close together, entwining and flowing armament hockey, which is not weak, condensed with unparalleled fluctuations. It hit Gumir's cross-defensive swords. In an instant, extremely terrifying power blasted out. Boom! Gumir's pupils dilated. An unparalleled shock wave went straight through the intertwined blades. It hit him from the air. Akawakoko. His face was distorted and he was vomiting blood. His eye—
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.